Good morning. Good morning, everybody. It is so good to see all of you in the room none of us wanted to be in. But somehow we choose to find hope. Hope to fight another day. Hope to work on those trials. Hope to raise 10, 20, 30, 100 more dollars to help the next family. And hope that one day we will be here celebrating the end to DIPG, DMG as we know it. We will do it. We will do it, and we will celebrate, and we will probably have mimosas at breakfast. I'm going to ask our MCs to come up while I take care of just a couple of housekeeping things. The last couple of days, if you've been in the room, we've talked about how you will have an impact in the next year. You faced that 6 to 9 month life expectancy with your child, perhaps. Perhaps you're in the fight right now and you're extending it every day. And we are going to try to bring those trials fast enough, and we know it's never fast enough. But how will you take those 6, 9, 12 months that your baby's fought so hard? How will you decide in the next year that your impact would be one you would be so proud to leave should your life not go as you once planned? That's my challenge to you. And you're going to see a little bit today how people in the community have used the last 12 months and what we're challenging for the next 12 months. But as I look out in the audience, I see so many different experiences, ideas. Mine's not like yours. Yours not like mine. So we can't assume that without your voice, we could ever make the community the way it should be for everyone. And that's why you are so important, whether you're in the audience at home, whether you've been able to come be in this room. Think about the gaps. Find the gaps. Help fill the gaps. Let's work together on that. Just a couple of things. Amanda DeCiso is in the lobby, and she will be afterwards. She is a DIPG mama who wrote a book, The Hero Within. That's beautiful. She's doing a book signing, and I encourage you to check out her book and take one home with you. We still have sponsors. Please check out these beautiful posters of those of you that were family sponsors, and thank you for your family sponsorship. You make this possible, and we can't thank you enough. And before we get started, I just wanted to take a moment of silence to recognize the 5 children that I know of who passed away in the last week. And of course, we know there's many more over the course of the year. But last night, Stella McConnell passed away in Nebraska. And the night before, Zoe Jane Betker. A couple nights before that, Marshall Huff. And a couple nights before that, JL. And about a week, 7 days ago, Braylon Hodgson. And these were beautiful children that I had the pleasure of knowing and will carry with me forever. And I encourage all of you to get to know our wonderful children that are much wiser than their ages, that seem to have more perspective on life than we will ever have, and are doing things that we could only imagine ourselves doing if only we would be so brave. And that's what I'm going to encourage you to do, is find that piece that says, I can do this. I can do this because my child, my grandchild, my sibling taught me how to be outside their comfort zone and to fight for another day. So 2 people that know that very well are our MCs. They were friends of my son, Jace, and make our community so proud every day. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and I want you to tell us a little bit about yourselves, okay? This is a good time to do it because we are so proud of you. We're going to get started. It's going to move really fast, so if you need to use the restroom in between, you just get up and do it, okay? You just get up and do it, please. And if you know that you're the next speaker, if you can just kind of be hanging out where these guys are, that way we won't take a lot of time waiting for somebody to come on stage, okay? We're just going to go through it just like the Academy Awards. That's what we're going to do. All right. Well, good morning, and I'm so glad you're here. Afterwards, we will also have an hour that you guys just get to mingle and have fun. And then those of you that are part of the DIPG Research Funding Alliance, we have a lunch, and it's across the hall at 12:30. If that's something that you're like, we really want to join as a foundation, or the minimal commitment is $5,000 a year to fund research, please join us. You're more than welcome to. Cure Fest activities. If it's raining tonight, we'll be right in here at 6:45. And some of you were able to meet Marcel. It's not too late if you haven't. Marcel believes in the continuation of consciousness. Some of you had a reading yesterday and was pretty impactful, I understand. It's not maybe for everyone, but we offer lots of stuff that's not for everyone. And we know that we have a community that's trying to connect with our kiddos. So those are the things going on today. I can't remember the time. I think there's a poster out there. I want to say it's 4 to 6. But thank you. Thank you for everything, guys.
Hello, everybody. We are extremely honored and excited to be here today. My name is Grace Weather. I am a brainstem glioma fighter.
My name is Rachna Prasad, and my brother Mithil had DIPG.
And we are very excited to introduce some amazing speakers today who are going to share their experience in advocacy, fights, family fights, all of the above. So it's going to be a very interesting morning, and we're going to hear from a lot of different walks of life and paths along the way. Do you want to introduce our first speaker?
Yeah, sounds good. So our first speaker will be just welcoming everyone, and it's Jay Rice, who is one of Jace's best friends, and so we're really excited to hear from him and to get started.
Everybody, please welcome Jace Rice.
Good morning. First off, I want to thank Lisa Ward for letting me speak today because she knew the risks. And Sylvia for nursing my vocal cords back together. Thank you, Auntie. So, I'm Jay Rice. Some of you know me, some of you don't. For those of you that don't, I work for the Tough2gether Foundation, which started with my best friend getting diagnosed and led to me speaking here today. So hopefully I do a good job. I don't relate to the people I work with. They're all wonderful parents and siblings and fighters who have either lost a child or a sibling or are still in the fight, so how could I? I don't have kids, so I can't lose one, and all my siblings are healthy. So I can't truly understand what it's like, so I don't pretend to. Jace always gave me grief about being a big analogy guy. Some call it mansplaining. So in my eulogy to my best friend, I said it's like watching your friend get picked on by a bully. You don't beat up the bully, you let your buddy fight his fight until it gets too much, and then you pull the bully off, and maybe you give him a few licks and call it a day. But what do you do when that bully's beating him from the inside? An invisible bully that you can't pull off him. You cheer him on like you've never cheered before. It sucks being on the sidelines, and that I can say I can truly understand. But after the fight's over, there's no winner, right? They're both gone. But there's not a lack of fights to watch. There's not a lack of fighters to cheer on, and there's not a lack of cancer in the world, and our fighters are putting on a good fight, so let's cheer them on. And I heard that Franklin quote that justice can't be served until the unaffected are as just as outraged as the affected. Guys, I bet on sports that I don't watch, okay? Oh my goodness, calm down. Surely our fighters have fans that are unaffected. Home field advantage is real, and we got to make it known as family and friends who we're rooting for. I thought you guys would clap at that. Stop, chill. So there's my speech, 1 minute and 30 seconds if I talk fast, which I probably did because I'm so nervous. And Lisa texted me Tuesday asking about my speech, and I realized I spent more time talking about us moving forward than I did about the past that brings us here. So I felt bad for a second until I realized that's Jace's fault, okay? I didn't forget everything he did or who he was. I just got so caught up in continuing his work that he was so passionate about with his family and friends that I forgot to give a shout out to the young man who put me here in front of you today because that's what his passion did to me. He cared so much about so many, and by the time he passed and I subbed in, I was meeting kids that had stories about him that I didn't even know. He cared so much for the parents who had to pick trials without knowing side effects, kids spending weeks looking at white hospital walls, teenagers looking for answers on social media, and doctors who had to watch it happen over and over again every day, counting on grants from 5Ks that we keep running. This breakfast was born from Jace's desire to work together and pack the stands for all the good fights we got going on right now. So cheers to the fighters, and cheers to the fans.
Well, if Jay was that nervous, then I'm super nervous because he normally composes himself a little bit more than I do. Good morning, everyone. My name is Brooke Ward. For those of you who may not know, I am the proud sister of Jace Ward. And I thought it was probably about time that I faced my crippling fear of speaking publicly and finally honor the bet that I lost at our first Cure Fest together in 2019. We were sitting there, looking at the speakers, and I said, I'm never going to do that. Jace bet me a stupid bet, and that was what he won, so here I am now. He did give me advice for the day that I would eventually give a speech in his honor. He told me to be vulnerable, say what no one else will, and always wait and write it until the night before, just as he always did. For those of you who might not know, Jace and I were about 18 months apart in age. And oddly enough, we truly thrived being close in age. Our individual strengths and weaknesses always complemented each other's. Therefore, we relied on each other daily. For instance, Jace never packed his own suitcase, and I never submitted homework without having him check it first. Jace always planned and hosted the party, while I kept my dad calm as 30 additional people walked through the front door, leading my dad to understand that it was going to be a lot more than the number he gave him an hour before. And most importantly, Jace could get on a stage, much like this, and kill speech after speech, while I had to text him the day before to remind him that he had a speech and the time commitment that he had for that speech. In 2019, Jace, my mom, and I came to Cure Fest here in DC. The three of us came here to truly on a blind mission to tackle whatever came our way. We had no idea what the experience would be like, but we trusted that it would give us a little bit more hope and understanding while Jace started his fight. The three of us decided to take the day and storm the hill. The more people we talked to, the more blunt and real we became. I watched as Jace became more and more frustrated as the day went on. Right before we walked into our last office that day, Jace looked at me and said, "It's a really good thing that we come from a family of fixers because there's a lot of changes that need to be made here." I think it's safe to say that the rage and disappointment our family felt that day as we spilled our guts over and over, only to receive blank stare after blank stare, was only the beginning of our motivation to make a real change. As Jace and I sat in the Airbnb that night, we talked about everything that needed to be addressed, changed, and re-envisioned. I am so proud to stand up here today and tell you that although we're still fighting for a cure, along with many other things, we have to give ourselves credit for completely redefining and reshaping what a cancer community can be. I mean, seriously, take a look around. Every single one of us brings something new to the table. We are pushing back on the narrative that childhood cancer has to be a silent battle for all of those who are involved. I mean, we have dads talking about their feelings in a healthy way. We have siblings opening up about how shitty it is when their lives gets flipped upside down. When their sibling passes away and they don't have their right-hand man anymore. And we are changing the crazy mom narrative to the empowered mom narrative. As a collective, we're not only making real changes, we are continuously looking for the next area that needs work. DIPG is not rare, it's just rarely talked about, so let's keep talking. Thank you.
I want to take a few moments to honor some honorary guests who are here with us today, this morning. The first person I would like to take a moment to speak about is someone who is one of my own personal heroes. I met this woman for the first time here at the Brainstorm Summit last year. Lisa Ward had helped us put together some special events featuring teens and focusing on what they needed in this community. We sat in groups of circles and talked about what it meant to be a fighter for a lot longer than we had scheduled. This wonderful woman sat and stayed with us the entire time, just listening to what we needed, listening to what we wanted, and listening to how we wanted our futures to look. So I would love to give a round of applause to Dr. Catherine Young, who is here from the White House Moonshot Initiative. And our next honorary guests, of course, are our fighters that are joining us here today. I know it is a long and often endless fight. So if we can take a moment to give a round of applause to all of our fighters and fighter families who are here with us today. I know it is not often easy to be in rooms like this as a fighter, so I want to thank you guys all for coming and enduring this breakfast and hearing some things that sometimes we don't always want to hear. And also, if this is your first breakfast, you can go into the lobby later, and Jeremy Biller of Gold Rush Cure has some pots of gold for you guys. So if it's your first year, make sure to meet him out in the lobby. Thank you guys, and now we're ready for our next speaker. This is Lisa Ward.
Okay, where are those fighters that are here for the first time? Jeremy is right in the back, and he has some fun stuff for you. So I don't know exactly where everybody is. And if you are the parent of a fighter and the fighter's somewhere else, feel free to meet Jeremy. They have some fun pots of gold from Gold Rush Cure. Thank you for showing this. That was just updating us. Here is what we've been doing this last year as a group. And there are a few things I didn't have logos of, but I wanted to just give you the overview because we've got some stuff going on, guys. So our tumor board, we're going to talk about later, has been going for almost a year. Incredible job by about 12 of our best doctors, pathologists, genomic experts. Live Brave, you're going to hear about. That's going to be a lot of help to families. We've been working this year in just kind of a temporary format with a lot of text and Venmos, and we're making it more official. A few of you participated together with me in an FDA notes meeting in July, and that was really informative. Right now, when trials are going to get approved, we hope they get approved, treatments, the measuring stick is overall survival, okay? But we all know that what really also matters is the quality of life, right? So what if a drug could extend quality of life even if the overall survival was not extended? Would that be worth having? I'm going to argue absolutely. Our son had 17 months, and I know we're very fortunate that he could play pickup basketball and golf, and that mattered very, very much. So we're going to continue that conversation with the help of, back one slide, please, with the help of Sonolescence, who, along with X-Cures, have created a beautiful quality of life assessment, and it will be recognized as real-world data. And some of you helped put that together and educate those that were putting up the the assessment in, what are the types of things that would be quality of life and how to ask those questions of families. And if you're in the fight right now, you're going to be asked to take those assessments. I'm also going to highlight for you X-Cures, who has been an amazing partner. We have a new X-Inform where you can register, and I'm going to ask you to do that as quickly as you can to share your family's, your patient's information, whether you had a fighter in the last 5 years who is maybe not fighting any longer, or whether you're a fighter now. And what happens is, in addition to doing that, if you're in the fight, you're also going to be involved with the quality of life assessment. So together, we're putting together enough data that we can really explain what the experience is like. And since the White House announced the effort of OneLink, which involves the X-Cures, Children's Brain Network, the My DIPG Navigator, the Live Brave, the Tumor Board, we've had 3 companies call already. That was just a week ago, and we haven't published it yet the way we want to. Yeah. And in essence have said, hey, we're getting ready to open a glioblastoma trial, or we're opening actually a colon cancer trial. And if the targets match up, we'll get involved. We want to get involved. How do I get that data? How can I get involved with that data? It's been wonderful to say, I got 2 options for you. I've got CVTN if you need some genomics information. If you need clinical trial imaging genomics for specific patients, we've got an X-Cures option, and we're off to the races with that. Nikki Lyons is a young researcher. She's presenting abstracts. She presented at PedsSnow. She's presenting at Snow. Some of the assessments that she gave you as parents on what you knew at diagnosis, and the terminology and health literacy that needs to come along, and what the experience is like in hospice and so forth, things we know we need to change. Thank you to all that attended Brainstorm Summit for the 2nd year. I believe the official count was right around 330 separate individuals participating this year. That's a wonderful growth. Shout out to AWS, who came along in August of last year and said, we think we can help make a difference. And what we do is we provide credits for storage for these technology companies and others to get involved with you. And in exchange, they can do some things without the expense you would normally pay. And so Slalom, a beautiful partner, put together the DIPG OneLink that we unveiled last week. And if you haven't seen it yet, please just open your phones right now. You're allowed to be on your phones in here. And go to DIPG-OneLink, and you'll see what we hope is a parent-to-parent narrative from new diagnosis to in the fight, to fighting for others, and different resources that have built to make that pathway more clear and easy. And I want to shout out to Stacy Sands, Sarva, Shauna Rogers, and, hope I didn't butcher that, and Misha Mehta, who helped so much on that project. And we brought Gift from a Child in too. We've got to continue that conversation. And that conversation can be difficult, right? Because what we're basically saying is it possible that you would share your child's tissue from biopsy, blood, CNS, or postmortem tissue? But we often put ourselves down as an organ donor on our driver's license, thinking that day is not coming tomorrow. And we can do that just as easily if we believe that sharing tumor tissue is something that will help the next patient. And we want to encourage that conversation very early in the journey, because that's really how all our patient discoveries, our trials are being set up, the way that we can test drugs and other treatments. That tissue is so precious. I think that I did not talk about the Cancer Moonshot. a big number of us were able to attend as part of the only 40 people invited to the White House yesterday. And Sarva was the moderator of the panel. And we're so proud that we had two DIPG moms on the panel, Ellen Miller and Sarva, as well as both dads and moms from the DIPG community represented. We also participated in the brain cancer forum back in May, and for the first time, I think, there was an equal number of glioblastoma and DIPG advocates, researchers, and industry reps. And I just want to shout out to Cancer Moonshot for making pediatric cancer such an important part of the conversation. And I really do believe, with all of the help of everyone in this room, we are one of the models now for pediatric cancer. I know it feels so alone, a diagnosis, you've never heard of it, you're in the dark. But in the pediatric cancer world now, we are leading the way. We just need to keep making that circle bigger until the day we can say, you have DIPG and here's how we're going to cure it. I think that is what we've done. I also want to talk just real briefly about the Tough2gether online community that you're going to hear about. I would not have named this Tough2gether. I would have named it something neutral, but I'm told that in online spaces you have to be able to trust who's standing something up. And I hope you guys are coming to trust us. If not, we need to talk about that because I want you to. The online community is, in my description, Zoom meets Facebook Messenger, meets chat, meets Slack, where you can keep different work projects together and documents and so forth. We're going to want to roll that out all together over the next year, not just for DIPG, but for all of childhood cancer eventually. But we need to be the pilot program. And so spaces that you guys might work in your boards, on the Brainstorm Summit in DARFA, and also things like grief support. Maybe you do a book study. Maybe you have a grief session. You know, maybe you have a children's activity like Leah's Kids and Our Amazing Fighters and Ava's Avengers. They can all take place in that space, and no data is collected. Nobody knows your email address. Nobody knows your phone number. They just see you as a member and can place calls and messages. So it feels a little bit better to some of us who weren't really ready to share everything during our fight. It's a community that embraces this community, embraces the fight. All right. Well, I also want to point out the last thing. I keep thinking I've covered it. The Chad Tough Researchers Workshop. I just want to give a big shout out to you guys. That was an incredible event. You brought researchers together to talk to each other. Some presentations, but lots of discussion. And that was new, I believe, and just a real service to our community. And I know it took lots of planning in addition to your beautiful gala that helps raise so much money for funding research. But I think our conversations among researchers are changing because they have those opportunities. So thank you to Chad Tough. All right, I want to bring Jenny up. Jenny Mosier is one of the founders of Chad Tough Defeat DIPG, and they started the My DIPG Navigator, which many of you used a little over a year ago. I want you to hear how it's going and ways you can get involved.
Does anyone else hear music? It's not what I would have picked for my walk-on music, but it's good anyway. Hi, everyone, and thank you, Lisa. I am honored to be here today to talk a bit about my DIPG Navigator. My name is Jenny Mosier. I am a co-founder of Chad Tough Defeat DIPG Foundation, along with my husband, Mark, and Tammy and Jason Carr, who aren't able to be here this weekend, but definitely wish they were. I am also Michael's mommy, which I shouldn't ever stand up and not acknowledge my son Michael, who inspires everything that I do. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. I'm here to just give a very high overview of what we've accomplished with my DIPG Navigator over the last 16 months. Just in case there's anyone in the room who hasn't heard what this program involves, My DIPG Navigator is a free one-on-one resource for DIPG and DMG families in the fight who are being treated in the United States. And we put together this program in partnership with many others across the community. Involved a lot of work with some of the leading doctors, with families, and inspired by Jace Ward's vision of what this program could be to offer a resource to every family who was facing this tragic disease. We launched in May of, 2022. So we are 16 months in, and these numbers may have changed because this is from last week, and we see patients enrolling all of the time. But as of last week, the nurses had interacted with 217 patients and families in the past 16 months. One interesting data point about that is if you look at the first 6 months of the program, not including the initial launch where there was a bit of a flood of enrollments, but if you look at the first 6 months, we were looking at about 9 enrollments per month. The pace of enrollments is definitely increasing in the program. Now we're looking at closer to 13 enrollments per month. What this means, I think, is the word is getting out about the program. Our nurses who are amazing, their reputation precedes them as families are talking about them to each other and what a help that they have been. And so we see an increase in the pace along with opportunities to possibly expand our ability to serve more families. We have added an interpreter service, which I think is an important point that has come up before with many of you in the room, to enable us to serve families who are Spanish-speaking or other languages. And we are considering expansion into Canada right now and preliminary exploration of that. Our response time has also changed. In the initial program launch, we committed that our nurses would be in touch with families within 24 hours. They are incredible, and the response time is less than 3 hours when a patient reaches out, which is pretty remarkable if you think about it. And I know so many of us have been the family that's sitting there in agony, needing help, and 24 hours feels like a lifetime when you just need someone to answer your questions. So this is a really amazing, I think, part of our program, that they are able to get back to people so quickly and at least offer that initial help and then set up as much support as they need over time. We have been actively participating in the DIPG DMG tumor board. Our nurses have participated in all of the meetings. And this is mutually beneficial, I think, both to our nurses who are learning a lot by hearing firsthand how the doctors are evaluating the patients, but also we hear that it's beneficial for the doctors to hear back from the nurses who are participating in the tumor board. We have an ongoing program evaluation process going, including biannual surveys of our families to make sure that we are doing what the families want, that we are meeting their needs, and that if there are mistakes made or there are gaps, that we can actively move to correct those and try to improve the program as much as possible. We are also tracking the monthly statistics so that we stay on top of how the program is going real time, and if we notice anything that's different or any blip, that we can try to address that right away. A key highlight, is the relationship building that's happened over the past 16 months. This is thanks to so many of you in the room. We have families who have built relationships with our nurses. We have many organizations that are partnering together to provide this program. And we have partnerships with the medical community that are essential to making sure that our nurses know all of the up-to-date information so that they're able to provide that to the patients that reach out. If we can go to the next slide also, thank you. I thought you all might be interested to see some of the statistics broken down by state. The real point in my mind of thinking about this, some of it's population driven, obviously. So you have a state with a higher population, you would expect to have more patients. But you also notice some states maybe larger states that do, we know have a lot of patients that aren't necessarily enrolling and participating. I think that it shows that there's an opportunity all across the country for us to be spreading the word, for us to make sure that when people in your community are diagnosed, I know that you probably, like us, receive calls because people know, oh, I know this other family that's been through this, let me connect you with them. This is a tool that everyone can offer to a family right away, and it is such a great resource, and it takes some of the burden off of you as a family to feel like you need to know and be an expert in all of the trials that are going on and make sure that you're giving them all the most accurate information. I know I felt very stressed when a family would call me and I worried that my information was dated or maybe there was something out there that I wasn't giving them, and I would hate to be someone that was not providing every single option. My very first thing that I tell a family now is please go to my DIPGnavigator.org, sign up your family. The earlier that you can get enrolled, the better, because they can really help you at every step along the road. If we could go to the next slide. My time is short, so I will wrap up, but while I stand here today, I do so as part of a team. I know that for us and for our 40 family partners who we stand with, this is one, we of course do a ton of research funding, and that's very important to us, but this is something that is really meaningful to our hearts. To be able to give something to families in the fight right now means the world, and we hope that this is a resource that will eliminate even any burden off of families. Next slide, please. The program really would not be possible without the partnership of so many different organizations who financially support the program and also are critical in getting the word out about this free resource that is available. We are very proud to partner with all of the organizations that you see up here. And as we look for ways to expand the program and things like I was talking about in terms of potential expansion to Canada and other ways to serve more patients, these partnerships are critical to make sure that we have the funds available. As I said, the pace of enrollments has been increasing, and if we're doing our job right to make sure that institutions across the country know about us, that will just continue to increase. And we are very aware that it might mean that we are adding new nurses to our team so that we can continue to provide the quality of support and the speed that I talked about in terms of response time. Go to the next slide, please. The heart and soul of our team, our nurses, any of you who have had the pleasure of interacting with them, and I hope all of you had, if you haven't already, 2 of our nurses are still here right now. All of them have been here over this weekend. And I hope you take the opportunity to meet them. Leslie, Jared, Ashley Rogers, Emily Rutt, Lauren Karajas, and their hearts are in this so deeply, and the level of care that they provide to each and every family and how much it means to them can't be overemphasized. So we are very, very grateful. One thing many people may know, Leslie Jarrett is entering into retirement at the end of the year, and we will be adding a new team member as our Director of Nurse Navigation at that point in time. Her name is Daniela Ciccolini. She is an experienced pediatric oncology nurse and is going to be a great person to transition to. But I want to say a few words about Leslie, if that's okay. As we get to the final few months with Leslie Jarrett, I know in the past few years, I have talked with countless families who have been impacted by Leslie. She joined Chad Tuff to help us launch My DIPG Navigator, and she had previously been at Cancer Commons, where she met and worked with countless DIPG families who were trying to get involved in the expanded access program for ONC201. Through that work, she was helping families fight barriers that they were facing to get this drug. And she developed quite a fan club, I think it's fair to say. And Jace was one of the people who was a fan of Leslie's, and it's through Jace's relationship with Leslie and how much she helped his mom and his whole family and him that the idea of my DIPG navigator really was born. For years, I have heard from families the depth of their gratitude to Leslie Jarrett. And I reached out to kind of, see, well, what would you say if you wanted to talk to Leslie and express your gratitude to her? One of our dear friends, Megan Scoggins, who can't be here today, she shared, Leslie Jarrett came into our lives on day 3 of my daughter Kenzie's DIPG journey, and I couldn't be more thankful. Many of you know the pure terror of this journey, but the first days are mind-numbing. She is extremely intelligent and always lending a helping hand. But more than anything, she provides comfort, and she truly cares for the families and the children. I love her, like she is a part of my family. Mairead Finn, who is here in this room. Mairead wanted to share some of how Leslie impacted her and her family. Leslie Jarrett was an angel in my darkest thunderstorm of life. She let me find hope so I could give Vivian a normal life. You can't make memories with a child who has a terminal diagnosis if you are hopeless. She allowed me to ask stupid questions and empowered me to ask more of Vivian's care team so I could give Vivian the best options in care. I felt like I was living a nightmare, and she was the only person I could impose on to help. DIPG is a journey like no other. You are no longer normal. Your concerns are not something you can always share with your family and friends. She is the Mother Teresa of pediatric brain cancer. She recognizes your pain and stands beside you, so you no longer fight alone. I spoke to her every day of our fight once I was introduced to her. I will be eternally grateful for her love and companionship. I could stand up here for a very long time. We would be into lunch if I read all of the complimentary things that were said about Leslie. She is a wonderful nurse. She has all the credentials and the training, but it is her heart that sets her apart from others. She has left us that compassion and heart in the My DIPG Navigator program that will be part of her legacy. And we are going to miss her tremendously, but I can't think of anyone who more deserves a well-deserved, hopefully fun and carefree retirement than Leslie. Lisa would like to come and offer an appreciation from our whole community to Leslie Jarrett.
Leslie, come on up. Jenny described you so well, and we're just honoring you with the Lifetime Impact Award. And from our Tough2gether broad community, you've made such a difference, and I wanted you to take the time to speak. Thank you so much for paving the way for so many, and we are so incredibly proud of you.
I need a Kleenex from the table. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to read my notes. And public speaking is not one of my talents, by the way, so we'll see how this goes. But it is time. Kenny Rogers, wrote the song with the lyrics, you got to know when to hold them and you got to know when to fold them. And it is time for me to fold them. I have... Just to tell you why it's time for me to fold them, I've been a registered nurse for 46 years. So that tells you my age if you do the math. And so it's time. And I I've done a lot of things as a nurse. I've been in the ER, the ICU, the CCU. I did clinical research for over 30 years and did that monitoring and management of that with drug development. And so during those different rotations, as you want to call them, I made some impact throughout my life, through my work. But not very often, I don't think. But I want you to know that in the last 2.5 years, or 5 years if you want to count my Cancer Common, I've made more impact. It's impacted me more. It may have impacted families, but my life has been changed because of you and your children and your families. I am so very sorry that for the circumstances that we know each other, but you have enriched my life more than you will ever know. Let me see what if I can't see it either because I'm crying. I'm leaving behind a wonderful program, and I don't want to say, this program, but I want to tell you a little bit about the nurses that are left, that are not left, that are ongoing. Sorry, my notes are better, but I can't see them. So, in the last 1.5 years, we've hired 4 nurses, and we had almost 900 applicants for these 4 nurses. So I want you to know that they are the cream of the crop. They're pediatric oncology nurses. They're not only intelligent, but they're so compassionate. And they will move forward with this program, and it will continue to succeed and help families. And that's what I want you to hear. Change is hard. It's hard on me. This is a hard speech, a hard time, but it is time. I want to thank Chad Tough Defeat DIPG Foundation, the co-founders, Mark and Jenny and Tammy and Jason, for being open to this. But I want to say a special thank you to Ann Friedholm. In my 46 years as a nurse, and she's not going to want me to say this, but she really has been the most significant leader and the best manager I've ever had in my life. And so it takes more than one person to have a program. So Chad Tough, the co-founders, and Ann, and the nurses are this program, and it will continue on. And I will look back very fondly on that. I also want to thank Jace Ward. When you work remotely, you don't get to see your patients, and it's much easier to connect when you see them. But we are still able to connect, and I was able to connect with Jace, and I don't know if Lisa sent me a picture of him. That was sneaky. But I saw this, and Brian Federowitz, who I think is in this room, I worked with him at Excures to get Jace on UNC 201 when he was excluded because he was stable, and many of you are familiar with that term. Brian and I worked together with then Oncoceutics for over 10 weeks probably, to see with a sponsor to say, look at the picture of this young man, he can't die. And they made an exception, and I think it gave him another 10 months or so. I don't want to misquote Lisa, but we didn't give up, and we won't, and the program will not give up on your child and the future children that unfortunately may need our help. I also want to thank Lisa Ward, who you can't say no to. You've heard that this week. I told her no. I was not going to do this, but I would help her find the right person to do this program. You can't tell Lisa no. And she said, this will change your life, and it has. And I'm sorry for the reason, but I thank each and every one of you. And as I leave, I want you to know I will never forget your child or you, because you've made an impact too. I thank you very, very much.
I'm not sure how I'm supposed to go after that. Okay, my name is Stacy Sands. I'm also Hudson's mama, forever 6 from a DIPG brain tumor. And I am also a proud family partner. My husband Todd and I with Chad Tough Defeat DIPG. We're the Hudson's Hope Family Partnership. And I get to introduce DIPG OneLink, which Lisa talked about a little bit, but and Sarva as well will talk and tell you about this amazing new resource. The purpose of which is to expand our circle to include you, yes, you, families like yours, to give us all a purpose and hope regardless of where we're at on our journey. It's a hub for information and making connections with others that you can relate to, and it serves as a consolidated point to amplify other important tools and organizations that are critical in the fight, no matter where you are in that fight. If you could turn the slide. So I'm just going to give an overview and talk about the sections of the site. The first thing you'll notice is the voice of families. It's woven throughout the site, and those families are the moms of some beautiful boys: Lisa, mom of Jace; Sarva, mom of Mithiel; and Misha, mom of Neve, as well as myself. It's written by families like yours for families like yours. I'm grateful to get to use my voice in Hudson's honor, and you will learn many ways you can do the same by joining in this community. There's 3 sections: new to the fight, in the fight, and fighting for others, with tools, ideas, and ways to connect at each stage. I'm going to cover the new to the fight section. Not many, everyone now knows about my DIPG Navigator, the awesome service from the Chad Tough Defeat DIPG Foundation. That is the first thing you'll see in the newly diagnosed section of our site, including the Nurse Navigator program, which helps in those early stages more than ever. We also discuss best practices from experts, including Dr. Sabine Mueller, on topics such as radiation, biopsy, and use of steroids, things that I remember needing help with early on. I think back to Hudson's diagnosis and how we felt so alone in making decisions without expert guidance from a nurse navigator. Oh, how I wish that had been around just 3 years ago when Hudson was in the fight. I also remember trying to find Facebook groups and other means to connect with families in the fight. The Tough2gether community makes that easy by providing a platform to connect and share clinical trial results, alternatives to steroids, and much, much more, while leaning on families who truly understand what you're going through. Another resource made available through DIPG OneLink is Live Brave Together. I remember searching for financial assistance when we began traveling to MD Anderson for a clinical trial, and later to Mott's Children's Hospital to see Dr. Koshman, both locations requiring flights, hotels, and other travel expenses. It wasn't easy, and Todd and I spent precious time reaching out for financial assistance that we could have otherwise been spending with Hudson. Live Brave Together simplifies the process using an online platform where families can post a request for assistance. Live Brave notifies members who coordinate support and reach out to families near theirs. And with that, I'm going to introduce Sarva, who's going to cover the in the fight as well as the fighting for others sections of the site.
Thank you, Stacy. I'm Sarva Channarajaras, Mithil's mom, co-founder and president of Mithil Prasad Foundation. Before I start on the slide, I again want to share something my mother told me about helping others. You plant a seed, not expecting or wishing to spend time under its shade, because somebody else will enjoy that, right? You want to do that, and that is where this project came about for us. We wanted to see it from our own experience. What is that we wish we had? What is that would have made this burden a little less? And so that's how DIPG One Link was born. Of course, with working with Lisa, we'll make sure we bring everybody in the community together to build the site. So please, if you have not visited, go visit the site. If there is any area that you think you can contribute, please contact us. We would definitely want to make this bigger and better, and almost like a role model website, resource hub for other pediatric cancers too. So when are you in the fight? Is it 2 days, 2 weeks? Don't know. It's up to you. It's up to it's different for each one of us. For me, it was maybe around a week. So you're inundated with information, but you want to know what does that mean, right? So there is an NCI Cancer Dictionary, which kind of explains every word. And if you are that kind of person who wants to know more about the scientific, aspect of it, they can use that. Other thing was, we were fortunate to be in the center of close to 2 centers of excellence, but it's not the case for others. So, again, my DIPG Navigator is an excellent resource, again, who will help you figure out what clinical trials might be available to you and you might qualify. So that's, again, we have a resource directly to the clinicaltrials.gov. If that you are, again, inclined more scientifically, want to read all that, that's there. We have linked that one. The other thing is also, again, as I said, there are centers of excellence where they cater to more of DIPG, DMG kind of, pediatric brain tumors. There are experts in those, so we have a link to all the centers of excellence that's there in our website. Of course, you always, when something like this comes upon you, you want a second opinion. So that's, again, through my DIPG Navigator, who can also guide you, but we can also go to DIPG DMG National Brain Tumor Board. It's an excellent resource, again, of a free resource for patient families and providers to get to know the best course of action that the experts will suggest. And, whether we like it or not, data is going to make a huge difference in finding new therapies and targets. So I really want to encourage you all to go look at the 2 resource hubs that we have put in the website, the X-Inform from XCures and the CBTN. Go read it up, figure out for yourself, but please don't be left out. We don't want to be left out of this, really, I think, the next big thing that's going to happen, right? Because, again, pediatric brain tumor itself is, considered rare compared to other cancers, overall. But the data is the one that's going to help us to make up for that lack of this one. And I was very happy to hear even CCDI talk about not only collaborating across the institutions in the US, but also across the world. They're reaching out to European partners and others. So it is going to be a big thing. Read for yourself, figure out, and especially I think X-Inform from XCures helps you if you're going to different hospitals in your journey. It really gives you a consolidated view so that you save time when you're explaining to the next doctor about what is happening with your kid. And of course, we don't want this to happen to anybody, but if you reach a stage where you're ready to talk about tissue donation or postmortem donation, Gift from a Child is an excellent resource. They're doing wonderful work in that very hard space. Next slide, please. Of course, we don't want to get here, but when we are here, one of the things, at least for me, the only way forward was to help others in this community. So again, a lot of people are going to talk about it. Grief is not like one size fits all. Each one of us experiences differently, handle it differently. We want to, but we want support during that time. I went to, therapy almost for a year. That really helped me. My husband took up, he was a gardener, but he took that up like 110%. That was his way of dealing with it. But that's okay. But we just want to make sure as a everybody in the family has support, and there are resources in like Live Brave Together and other, even in the childhood Tough2gether online community, you can go talk to people, make that, connect with other folks who are in a similar boat. Share your story. It's hard. Every time I put up a presentation with Mithil's picture on it, it takes me like an hour to get out of that mode, right? It is hard. But I think, again, I go back to what my mother said. You're not expecting to sit under the shade of the seed you planted, right? So you want to share your story, and also, please think about donating data to advanced research. As I said, I think that is the fastest way for us to really find new therapies and targets. If you have any questions about this website or what was thinking behind it, contact any one of us, Misha, Lisa, Stacy, or me, or if you please get involved in it, and that's one way we can make change and help others. Thank you.
It is my very great pleasure to introduce the next speakers. She is someone that I have admired for a long time because of everything she deals with personally, but also how she keeps fighting for the DIPG community through research and through advocacy. Nikki is a graduate of Columbia University in behavioral neuroscience and biology. Her educational and research focus has been on molecular underpinnings of how stress and brain tumors impact the brain. She currently works in DIPG research at Mount Sinai Hospital. Over the last several years, she has been increasingly active in patient advocacy, scientific communication, and health literacy research with foundations such as Gift from a Child and Tough2gether. Nikki's work focuses on helping patient families understand the basic sciences needed to make decisions on clinical trials and treatment decisions for their children. One of the tools developed for this purpose is Brain Tumor 101, an ongoing series of lectures on the science behind pediatric brain tumors. Outside of brain tumor research, she is also passionate about better accommodation and access to higher education for students with chronic illness and disabilities. Nikki is a current MD PhD applicant with the intent to pursue both the clinical and research aspects of pediatric neuro-oncology. Along with her is Dr. Robin Gartrell. Dr. Robin Gartrell is Assistant Professor of Pediatrics in the Division of Hematology Oncology Stem Cell Transplantation at Columbia University Irving Medical Center and an attending pediatric oncologist at New York Presbyterian Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital. Her laboratory uses advances in tumor immunology to develop more effective and more personalized therapies for children with cancer. In particular, they use multiplex platforms and immunogenomics to evaluate tumor microenvironment and determine which pediatric tumor types and which patients will respond to immunotherapy. Concepts from the laboratory are now being translated into clinical trials through the Pacific Pediatric Neuro-Oncology Consortium, PNOC, and Children's Oncology Group. Please give a warm welcome for Nikki and Dr. Gartrell.
Is this the clicker? Okay. Hi, everyone. So the idea for understanding brain cancer actually came this time last year from a conversation with Misha that I'm not sure if she's nodding, she remembers, talking about how difficult it is to navigate the medical system or a diagnosis like brain cancer without the tools that scientists are given during their education to understand clinical trials, to understand this research. And it's an overwhelming amount of information to catch up with in a short and very traumatic amount of time. So this is just a little bit about me. Like Rashna said, I studied neuroscience and molecular bio at Columbia. I've also been a patient myself for the past 10 years dealing with kidney issues, and I've had 2 renal transplants, so I've spent more time stressed out in a hospital than I would really like to be. And I know I'm lucky enough to have a strong medical background, and I'm still constantly overwhelmed trying to go through research, trying to understand what my doctors are telling. And when I've gone to conferences with Lisa and other parents, listening to them be able to discuss the therapies at a higher level than I'm able to, but then asking questions about basic science terms like a synapse, and that missing piece is something that needs to happen because there's so much onus of figuring out what's going on that's on these families, and if there's something I can do to help take that responsibility off the families, that's something I think is really important to do. So this is just a little bit about that. So a couple months ago, I sent out an assessment to a lot of the DIPG families. Probably a lot of people in the room saw it and took this, trying to figure out where the understanding is at the time of diagnosis and at different parts during the child's cancer journey and how that changes. So I asked questions about chemotherapy, immunotherapy, and then I asked about how long are you spending outside of your child's doctor's appointments researching this? And the ranges are from, I don't want to know anything, to this is basically a second full-time job. So the average amount of time that we found was about 30 hours a week, and that parents were researching, as well as this huge change in the familiarity with all these terms in a really quick time. Time frame about clinical trial decisions were either after the 6-week initial radiation or pretty much within a week. And that's not a lot of time to learn a lot of science. So the goal with the understanding brain cancer is we're going to do quarterly bigger lectures on topics like neuroanatomy, parts of the brain, basics of the different treatment types. And then this is meant to be something very dynamic. I want to hear from everyone. What topics are you interested in? What term have you read in papers or heard a doctor say that you're like, wait, I don't quite get why this is important? Definitions do a lot, but understanding the context and the importance of why we're looking for certain targets or why we're focusing so much on mutations is really, really important understanding and giving just a sense of like why this is all happening. It's a complicated, complicated field. So I will be sending this out. This is just a survey asking, hey, are you interested in a topic? Is there a specific part of this you'd like me to go over? And then as I hear back from everyone, on top of the big quarterly lectures, we'll do little updates, like 3 or 5 minutes on a certain topic. We'll bring in experts like Robin to talk about something that they focus on and just build from there. And then we're working on word banks. I'm working on a sheet that's breaking down different words like hydrocephalus. Hydro means water. The CEPH, Ceph, means brain. So we're going from there, and I'll let Robin talk.
Yeah, I think, first of all, this is just an incredible honor to be here, and you guys are just like a huge motivation, and I'm very excited to get back to doing my research very soon. And I had the opportunity to meet Nikki through Lisa, actually, and we're both at Columbia. And so now I'm mentoring her on this incredible endeavor. And I think science education is incredibly important. I'm not sure how many of you guys were able to come to the Childhood Cancer Congressional Caucus a couple of days ago, but I spoke there, and I tried it's not easy as a physician or a scientist to try to, provide science or what we're doing in a way that's understandable. But it's one of my passions and one of my intents, and I'm hoping to use this platform with Nikki to be able to give you guys some information and also provide you a question and answer session for a few minutes with one of us to try to think through some of the bigger questions that you guys have, not necessarily about specifically like what should we do for your child for treatment, but more like education-wise, like what term are they using that you don't understand, or why this type of radiation versus that type of radiation, or understanding a paper that you found. And so most importantly, I think it would be fantastic if you guys not only filled out the survey but provided us feedback with these sessions if this is helpful, what else you would like to see. Again, we're going to be doing these and then posting them online. So every few months, we'll do a new lecture and provide that opportunity to teach you guys about things that unfortunately you have to learn. But I'm proud to support Nikki in this, and yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Nikki and Dr. Gartrell. I think this is going to be such an amazing resource that can be utilized by various members of the community. So I'm going to take a quick pause from the introductions to talk about something that I'm really passionate about. I introduced myself as Mithil's sister. I'm also the vice president of the Mithil Prasad Foundation, but I've also been involved with DIPG research for a few years now, and I did it full-time for 2 years. But my favorite thing to speak about is the sibling perspective. So I really enjoy advocating on behalf of siblings, and it's really an honor to be able to talk about my experience. There should be slides for this. Great. But before I start, I just want to say that this is my story. I'm really honored to be able to share it. But as many of us unfortunately know, grief is not it's a very diverse topic. We all feel grief differently. We all process grief differently. We all learn how to keep living with the grief differently. And so I want to say that at the base of its diversity, like when you add the sibling experience on top of that, there's even more variations. Was the sibling, were you an older sibling, a younger sibling? Did you become an only child after your brother or sister passed away? Do you have other siblings? How old were you guys? I just think the list goes on. And that's my way of saying that I hope to start a conversation about being a sibling and the various aspects of it. But of course, this is just my experience. This is just my story. And so one thing that I learned when I was going through my brother's passing is that a lot of people came up to me and they would try to relate to me by talking about their grandparents passing, which I know they came from a good place, and maybe there are other siblings in the room that can relate to this, but it's just not the same as the passing of your brother or sister. And then I had someone reach out who I hadn't heard from years, and her sister had passed away from leukemia. And I thought she was the one that I would relate to the most, but she told me something that I really take with me wherever I go now. And she said, I know every situation is different, and I don't want to say I understand how you feel because I probably don't, but I'm here for you if you want to talk. And it just blew my mind because I thought she's the one that would relate to me. She's the one that would tell me, I know how you feel. But she was the one that emphasized that even on the outside, if things look similar, it's really not. We all have our own variations. We all have our own feelings. And so with that, I'm Mithil's sister, and I always will be, and this is a bit about my journey. But before I get to that, I of course have to tell you about our relationship. So my brother and I were very close, I think partly because we were 6 years apart, so we didn't have much to fight about. I mean, at most, I would like push him a little bit, and he would dramatically fall backwards and then call for my mom, at which point I would get yelled at because I'm older and supposed to know better. So we really didn't have much to fight about. We got along very well, and he was the most loving person I know, and he showed it openly. He showed it fully. He didn't hide any of his emotions, and so it was easy to like a person like that, and it was an honor to be his sister, and of course, when he passed, it was hard to deal with. And so moving forward, some of the things that I personally dealt with after my brother, or during my brother's battle, but also after he passed, a lot of people told me to be strong for my parents, and it left me a bit confused why they weren't asking about my grief, why my grief was less than theirs. And so I had a lot of questions, and I spent a lot of time thinking about that. I was in college during this time, and that is a tough time to navigate in itself. You're learning to live away from your parents for the first time, possibly, and on top of it, I was going through all this, and in such a large school, the accommodations weren't great. I was trying to get a leave of absence, and they told me I couldn't unless I dropped out, and so there are a lot of other kinds of complexities that I wouldn't have thought of before I went through this myself. I'm now an only child. It's how other people see it. I don't have a sibling anymore. And I think I felt this a lot when recently a lot of my friends who had brothers or sisters the same age as my brother was, and they're all going to college now, and they're all being able to visit them and things like that. And I feel that missing piece a little more now. And along with that, is the simple question of, do you have siblings when you meet someone, becomes so complicated. Do I say yes, but then what if they ask me more questions? Do I say no, but then I'm kind of lying? And so I got used to saying no, and then in my mind and my heart knowing I'm not an only child, but I'll tell them when I'm ready. Recently, however, when I tried this, someone told me that I don't give off only child energy. So... And lastly, when I was going through it, especially when my brother was first diagnosed, I spent a lot of time Googling about sibling experience, trying to figure out what does it mean and how do I deal with it and how have other people dealt with it. And unfortunately then, there weren't a lot of different resources, but now there are, and that's something that I'm really excited about. And one way that I moved forward was actually contributing to that. So. On a professional level, I worked with Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation to adapt their peer-to-peer manual for siblings, and that was now part of their whole family mentoring program. Our foundation, as you've heard, is also involved with the DIPG One link, and that there's going to be such great resources on there for siblings as well. And then the rest that I've just included up there is stuff that I found in a really quick Google search, which just goes to show you that, there are things out there for cancer siblings, and I didn't have these resources, but I'm really excited that, unfortunately, when there's another person in my shoes, that they will have some resources. And so this is how I decided to, move forward, and one way that I healed was by participating and helping in these kinds of different projects. And then on a personal level, I try to embody my brother's spirit. I take a lot of what he taught about spreading love openly and being joyous and the way I carry myself. And also, of course, with my accomplishments, I always like to think that he's with me along the way. And I see that in tangible ways, like rainbows is what our family likes to look at. And I know many other families have different representations of their angels. It's actually something I took out of my balcony. I thought it was pretty cool. And then, of course, it's the foundation, and being able to speak in places like this is really, it brings us a lot of joy. It feels like we're carrying on his mission. We're able to talk about things that we're passionate about. And so, it's been a real honor to be able to share my story with you all. And I hope that, this has inspired you, if you know a bereaved sibling or even a sibling who has a brother or sister going through cancer, to talk to them, see what they're dealing with personally, and just start the conversation. And if you would like to continue the conversation, this is something that I'm really, really passionate about, and I know there's some time afterwards. Please come find me. It's something I would really, really love to talk about. But it's been an honor. Thank you for letting me share my story with you and for listening. And with that, I'm going to also introduce the next speaker. Dr. Koshman is an associate professor with tenure and the Chad Carr Pediatric Brain Tumor Center research professor in the Department of Pediatrics at the University of Michigan. He is also the Chad Carr Pediatric Brain Tumor Center clinical research director and the Children's Brain Tumor Network co-scientific director. His lab investigates the molecular mechanisms by which mutations in pediatric diffuse midline glioma and DIPG promote tumor growth and affect the response to therapy. Finally, he serves as PI and co-I for multiple early phase studies in DMG, DIPG, for which his lab performs analysis of correlate tumor and CSF samples. Please give a warm welcome for Dr. Koshman.
Thank you, Rachna. I think probably many of you who heard her speech, I feel like what we need to do is recruit her to my lab, or at least bring her to our med school. I'm very impressed with your efforts. It's quite an honor to be here. Lisa talked to me about speaking today, I think, almost a year ago, right after the last meeting. She said, "We're booking you." I was like, well, my calendar's empty a year from now. And so I'm glad to be here. I mean, I think this has been a really powerful few days for me. I have close personal relationships with so many of you. It feels like this is a family, and I'm just happy to be a part of this family. Obviously, none of you chose to be in this, and I'm impressed that you're out here every day, and still many of you who are in the fight, I'm impressed that you're here as well. I do have some critical feedback for the conference from Remy, from the back table, for Lisa. She wanted Astros donuts this morning. I think she actually left in protest, for real. It was really impressive. What I've been asked to talk about is two components. One is the DMG Act, which is a program through PNOC, which many of you are familiar with, and the other is being able to do correlate tests for midline glioma and DIPG, and where we're at with that and where the future might be. A lot of that work for the research that I do is focused on the drug ONC201. So I'm going to start by just showing some data that we've just recently published about our experience over the last half decade with the drug ONC201, and I think many of you have either had a family member treated with ONC201 or are currently being treated with ONC201. So I think hopefully this will be relevant data, and I'll try not to get too dorky. Keep it at a less dorky level. I worked with Dr. Sharon Gardner back, over about 5 years ago when we ran the phase 1 for ONC201 for K27M patients, and we were just trying to figure out why and whether this drug would work for our patients. But I started working with her and as well Oncoceutics, which has now come Chimerix, to look at basically patients who have all been treated at what we now know is what we call the phase 2 dose. And what has been the experience? Are there any things that we can learn from the outcomes so far, as well as which patients might be more likely to respond or less likely to respond? So across the phase 1 and then one of the expanded access programs, we had 75 patients who had either brainstem or thalamic tumors. All of these patients had K27M. And what we looked at was their experience on ONC201. So this is survival curves, and this is maybe a charged thing to show at a conference like this, but I think actually there's a lot of hope in these figures that I would just want to share. We were really surprised, quite honestly. I mean, I'd seen patients do well on ONC201, but when the numbers came together, patients who had been on ONC201 after initial diagnosis but before recurrence, if you look at that top left curve, had an average overall survival of 21 months. And that's obviously not a cure that we wanted for every patient, but it is a lot better than what we've seen for this tumor. And I think it was really exciting for us to see that we have a real signal and an ability that there's a crack in the armor of this very difficult to treat tumor. The middle curves are PFS, so that's progression-free survival. So that's the time on the top from the time patients started ONC201 to the time that their tumor definitively grew, or on the bottom from diagnosis. And one of the things that I'll just draw your attention to is that the average progression from diagnosis was 12 months. And prior to these studies, that 12 months is really what we quote as one of the historic overall survival. So many of these patients obviously lived beyond that, but that was around the time on average that the tumor was growing. And I certainly know people in this room who didn't have that good of an experience on ONC201. So each patient is different, and I try to give that nuance as we talk to families that this drug may help. And we're trying to figure out, and a lot of the work that we'll talk about after this is will the drug help your child and whether it would be a good fit. So these are actual curves. The ones on the left are called spider plots, and the ones in the middle are called waterfall plots. What it shows is the size of the tumor over time. And this is a lot of information to try to take in. But one of the things that made me first believe that this drug had a signal is, if you look far to the right, the ones that are getting 50+% difference, that's not something we normally see with radiation alone. So that was our first evidence that this drug was likely enhancing radiation for these patients. Obviously, there are some patients who just grew through it. Now we need to figure out who are those patients that are just going to go through ONC201. How can we help them? How can we build on ONC201? ONC201 is not going to cure DIPG and DMG, but can we build upon it? And I think to some of the calls for advocacy that were being made this week, if we can all get ourselves together, quite honestly, on a faster path to approval for this drug, it will move the process for us to be able to combine these as well. So anything that anybody can do, and the things that you guys are already doing, are already getting us that closer to a conversation with FDA. So that's the signal, right? So how can we learn from that, and how can we figure out which patients are more likely to respond? So one of the things that we did in one of the arms of the phase 1 ONC201 trial was to do serial spinal fluid. We did a lumbar puncture, and these were brave families who agreed to do that with us, that not being the standard of care, and now you'll hear that we're doing this more and more. We didn't know what we would find, and a lot of those families, we appreciated their braveness to be able to undergo a lumbar puncture. Fortunately, we didn't have any complications with that. One of the things that we saw was that patients who responded to the drug, the patient on the left is a patient whose tumor shrunk, and you see that purple sign is the area of the tumor getting smaller with time. Their spinal fluid, one of the markers that went up was a marker called 2HG. And this is a marker we were not expecting to change, but we know this drug messes with metabolism, and this was a metabolism marker. This patient on the right, I will say this family is here, and I told them that I talk about their daughter's story not infrequently. Her tumor, unfortunately, grew through ONC201. And what we learned from her tumor and her spinal fluid was that this marker went down. And so I think this was helpful for this family to know that even though ONC201 didn't help them, that future patients may learn from their daughter's experience. And so we went further with this with my colleague, Dr. Vanetti at University of Michigan, and one of the things that we learned from 2HG was that 2HG may actually be able to turn back on this histone trimethylation. It's going to be really hard not to have this feel really sciencey, but what some of you may be aware of is when we diagnose tumors with H3K27M, one of the ways you diagnose that is this K27 trimethyl goes down. That's those white slides that you can, the white stains on the top left. Patients treated with ONC201, when we looked at patients who had passed away but had been treated with ONC201, we saw that had been restored to normal. And it was our first sense that this drug is actually doing something that's very specific to the biology of H3K27M. This is important for us potentially as a marker now of, is this going to be a tumor that's going to respond or not? Maybe we could do a biopsy on ONC201 and see if we see that restoration. So these are the things we're testing right now in the PNOC trial. And also these are important markers. The FDA looks for evidence that there's an on-target effect, and we think this can hopefully be that evidence. So these are the trials that are open. As many of you have experienced, this is a moving target, and we are along for this ride, which is not a comfortable ride to be a part of because the drug is not approved, and for a lot of families, when they're diagnosed and when they are looking for a trial, there may not be one that fits. And so a lot of what I do, quite honestly, is figure out with families what's the best way to access drug, or if it's a good fit, if you should maybe be thinking about another trial, which does come up for families as well. So how do we track these patients' response to ONC201 or other therapies? We've heard probably a couple speakers this week talk about liquid biopsy. What we know, and this is a confusing thing, is that all brain tumors, especially higher grade brain tumors like DMG and DIPG, shed DNA. It's almost just like waste. It's not the same thing as cells floating around that are going to take up and grow somewhere. This is just debris, but it's debris that might tell us something about what's going on in the tumor. So what we found in our experience, this was one of my first patients right when I was finishing my training who our neurosurgeon at U of M said he had all this extra spinal fluid. Was there something we could do with it? And we said, we're just trying something out on a machine in the lab called a digital droplet PCR machine. And we were able to find his histone mutation as debris floating in that DNA. And then we've spent the last 5 years refining that test. This paper came out last year where we looked at those patients who donated spinal fluid and blood at multiple times on ONC201. And this is a lot to take in, but if you look at the patient's tumor is what in gray. So you see that it was getting better. This is a DIPG. And then all of a sudden it was getting worse. And this is something we're trying to sort out as we'd like to know at that bottom point on there as clinicians that the tumor is actually on its way to growing. And what we found was that in both plasma in orange and spinal fluid, those tests were telling us there was something brewing already. And so this is just a case example, and we're now prospectively looking at this in the PNOC trials, but these are tests that are generally quite sensitive, and I think we talked about in one of the meetings yesterday, we're doing our best with funding support from some family foundations here to make this a CLIA certified test so that we can offer this to patients in real time. And this is the very leading edge of what we might be able to do with plasma. We linked up with a lab in Israel. Efrat Shima is quite honestly brilliant, and we were happy to pull her into the DIPG world. What she's doing is pulling, you take a plasma sample and you pull it across a microscope slide, but embedded on that slide is all these antibodies, and it is very good at capturing needles in the haystack, which is what we're seeing with blood. In the blood, the needle is really almost imperceptibly there in the haystack. And what she was able to do was to find, in addition to the DNA we talked about, but actual protein, the actual molecules that do things. And we were not expecting to be able to find it, but she has shown really good feasibility. This paper is not yet published. So this is a patient that we treated on the ONC206 trial who came to us with metastatic K27M. And so this is sort of the high risk in a high risk tumor. And again, if you follow, this is a lot to take in, but I just want to show you this is potentially where we could be with the number of markers that we could get from a blood sample. So if you look at the gray line in the middle, that is the patient's tumor that seemed to be having an early response to ONC206, and then by day 150, the tumor clearly grew. It was a not subtle change at that point. So what were the ways in which we could track this patient's blood and not even need to use spinal fluid, but see what were indicators that the tumor might be growing? There's a lot on here, but what we are looking at is multiple DNA molecules and multiple protein molecules that we know are coming from the tumor. Both the DNA markers are the dotted lines down on the bottom. Those go down very fast, and unfortunately in this patient only started going up as the tumor grew. But what we saw was one of the protein molecules, the P53, that one was starting to rise even earlier. And so what we think we'll need to be able to follow these patients, and this is quite honestly what they're doing on the adult side in leukemia patients right now, is you come to clinic, you have 3, 4, 5 metrics of your disease. That's where we need to be with this, so that when you come to clinic, it's not just your MRI where we say could be growing, could be, we also have these blood tests, and we can give them to you, and we can put the whole package together and say, let's keep using this treatment or not. We are there, but I think a lot of the conversations that happened this week talking about needing to get this things CLIA certified, getting the federal government to have programs in place to cover the support of these tests, which are not going to be profitable. This is truly going to be a test that is helpful to patients but not profitable. So just these are a summary of these tests. In a few minutes that I have left, I just want to talk about the DMG Act, which many of you are familiar with. So this is a trial that's built to be a platform. So it's just going to be an ongoing trial. It's at a lot of centers. It's now international, Australia, multiple spots in Europe, and in Israel as well now. And what it is combinations of therapies so that we can move quickly. So if we get a short test of for example, ONC201 and another drug, then we can move on if there's a signal. If there is not a signal, then we can move on to another therapy. If there is, we can expand that. And so the first cohort of this has been ONC201 and a drug called Paxilicib. We have enrolled a lot of patients, and so it showed how quickly patients were interested in this kind of combinatorial therapy. We're doing a lot of tests on the side to figure out how it's working and which patients it's working. The next wave of trials is being built right now. We have 2 or 3 different arms that we're building. One of which is working with Marta Alonso's team, who published last year. This is, I think, the first time a DIPG trial was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. They treated a small number of patients with this oncolytic virus. They showed that it was feasible and safe to inject virus directly into the brainstem and that they had a signal of a response. So for someone like me, if you see that signal and we know there's a signal with ONC201 or we know there's a signal with CAR T, like, we should be putting those together sooner. I mean, like now. Why are we not putting them together now? And so this will be one that we're already building the trial. We have a buy-in from the various people involved so that patients who can enter a center and potentially get ONC201 alongside this oncolytic virus. That's the end of my talk. I had to cover a lot of turf in a small period of time, so I apologize for talking quickly. Appreciate that you all are here and appreciate all of the family foundations that have supported our work along the way, and keep doing what you're doing.
Hi everyone, I'm Misha Mehta. I am also known as Neve's mother. My foundation is called Neve Colte and Brave Ronald Foundation. We have a family partner foundation for Ronald's parents. Manisha and Milan are here with us today. I just want to give a big shout out to Dr. Koshman for this phenomenal talk and to show us how far we've come up with the ONC201 and ONC206 research, and it seems so promising, and especially the diagnostic test to see if the treatment is working or not. That is like the biggest thing that we need in this field. So thank you so much, Dr. Koshman, for your continuous efforts in this field. We appreciate you greatly. I'm going to talk about the DIPG-DMG Research Funding Alliance. This is an example that shows that power of coming together. What can we do when we come as a group, when we become one? So this is something that we put together it's a brainchild of Lisa and Jace, but we put together in 2022, so about a year and a half ago, and we have 50 separate nonprofit foundations that have come together. And the idea here is that we can collaborate and fund critical research that is required for DIPG and DMG together, such that we can move the field forward consistently. The easiest way to get into this is a simple $5,000. I say simple because what it goes towards is the DIPG-DMG National Tumor Board. There is no overhead cost here, but this allows us to give a platform, a service to all families currently in the fight to use the DIPG-DMG National Tumor Board as a second opinion, which is free of cost for all families. So this is what we came together to give, to pass forward, to pass on to the next set of parents that are going to battle this extremely devastating disease. So what we've done so far in our first year, we have funded about $1.6 million together, and we've spanned over lots of different clinical lots of different research areas, and I'll cover that in the next slide. But we have 2 funding cycles that we request for proposals. We have one in spring and one in fall, and this time we are waiting to get our fall grants in, and we review. We have a National Medical Advisory Council, Dr. Monge, Dr. Koshman, they all are part of our advisory council. They review these proposals for us. They tell the parents that these are good research proposals, this is what the field needs to go in. It's not the parents deciding, it's the doctors, the experts telling us which direction the DIPG research, DMG research needs to be directed towards. What else do I want to say here? And part of DARPA, and you've heard a lot about DIPG One Link from Lisa, from Sarva, from Stacy. This was a brainchild that came out of DARPA, right? So come in, join us, let us make our circle bigger, let's lean into each other and see what we can do to change the trajectory of DIPG DMG. Can I have the next slides, please? So these are our foundation partners for the DDRFA. We want to add more. Please come, please join us. We want all of our kids to be represented. You all get an equal vote in what happens in DDRFA. I wanted to say in the past 1.5 years, the 3 funding cycles that we've had, what we have funded so far is we've covered from basic research that would include like talking about circadian rhythm that we funded for Dr. Gibson at Stanford. We've also funded some basic research in terms of I want to say, exploring the cell cycle and genotype to combat DIPG, DMG. We've done translation research, so we're spanning across different areas of DIPG, DMG. For translation research, we have deciphering RNA translation in DIPG by Dr. Pressner from University of Michigan, mapping the DMG resistance and response to treatment, which is also very important from David Nazarian. We have just what we heard from Dr. Koshman right now, the CLIA certified diagnostic test was one of the recent fundings that we had just provided the last funding cycle. It is a great program. We are trying to see how we can, the other thing, sorry. I also wanted to say that we have also supported a lot of clinical trials too. We have supported observational clinical studies as well. So Sonalescence is one of the clinical trials that was supported by DARPA, as well as X-Cures for an observational study that we're collecting for the data aggregation is also funded. It's also an effort by the DDRFA. And with that, I would like to announce our next speaker. I am very, very excited to welcome Dr. Elias Sayre, who is a board-certified MD, PhD, pediatric oncologist who served as a sponsor of multiple FDA IND submissions leading to the first in-human clinical trials. Dr. Elias Sayre has spearheaded creation of the University of Florida Pediatric Cancer Immunotherapy initiatives and large animal comparative oncology studies, and serves as a principal investigator on the RNA engineering lab, where he has been the primary inventor of a number of pending patent applications concerning the immunological treatment of cancer. His translation efforts are also focused on new pipeline technologies, as including novel lipid nanoparticles, something that we've heard from Praveen Raju at a second keynote speaker, formulation that he pioneers for the immunogenic treatment of cancer currently being treated in canine patients that develop these DIPG, DMG tumors naturally, and therefore can be easily translated into first-in-human trials. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Sayre.
Thank you so much for that very, very generous introduction. This is an incredible audience. I'm truly humbled to be here. The impact you have made collectively that I continue to hear about is just profound and is making a difference and will continue to make a difference. I'm going to talk about something a little different. It's about immunotherapy. And this audience knows we need new treatments. We are making progress. We've heard about some of that progress, MEK inhibitors, BRAF inhibitors. We just heard about ONC201. and that looks very promising. And we heard about, to use Dr. Koshman's words, crack in the armor. And so as we get these cracks, however tiny they are, could there be a synergistic effect? And then hopefully one day that armor will be shattered. So a question I get asked very frequently is, why don't cancer vaccines work? And so vaccines to me are the greatest invention in medical history. To be able to stop something before it happens. The number of children that have been cured of diseases they will never encounter is myriad. And people have been trying for over 100 years to make cancer vaccines. Immunotherapy actually started in the late 1800s with just this idea, cancer vaccines. And to make a long story short, it's not that they don't work. They actually induce immune responses against cancer. It's just that those immune responses are not strong enough to overcome the cancer as it's growing. When we give vaccines to children, we have to give them over months, years, really, to get that response to be protective. You don't have months or years. This audience knows that. So if we're going to make a cancer vaccine that works, it has to work immediately. I would say within hours. And that's been a significant challenge for the entire field. So we've approached this a little differently. We have tried to make a very different kind of vaccine, basically trying to make a patient's cancer look like an active viral infection. What stimulates the immune system faster than anything, faster than a vaccine, is really an infection. And in many ways, one of the fastest infections in terms of the time that you are exposed to the time you have an immune response is actually flu. Within a couple of days from exposure, you can have flu-like symptoms. And what is flu? Flu is actually RNA. It's single-stranded RNA in a little nanoparticle shell, hits your bloodstream, and it causes pretty frequent symptoms, engagement of the immune system, and the reason people feel lousy, quite frankly, it's your immune response. Your immune response is coming, fighting that virus, recognizing it. RNA is information. Information is power. That information is processed by our cells into making a strong response against the flu. Now, one of the reasons the flu is so immunogenic is because it hits the bloodstream. When it's in the bloodstream, it travels everywhere, and that engages the immune system. And your immune system is everywhere. Lymph nodes are everywhere in your body. It's near the tumor. It's in arms, legs, in the center. And those lymph nodes take up these particles, induce a response against flu or anything that has RNA. So we've made different types of nanoparticles. You see them here. The point of this slide is to tell you that these are really tiny, 100 nanometers, 200 nanometers in size that we've made, and this has the RNA inside of it. And because these are so tiny, they can be taken up by filtration organs. And the filtration organs are your lymph nodes. Your spleen is the biggest lymph node in the body. And as they get filtered into these organs, the hope is that they will be taken up by immune cells. And now, instead of having this be flu RNA, it's the tumor RNA, the RNA that we can extract and amplify from a patient's individual tumor, and now re-educate that immune system against that patient's cancer. Because what we're working with in cancer is not a normal immune system. Okay, cancer, I would argue, is foreign. It is foreign. It is not normal. And so it kills me when people say this is a self-disease. It is not a self-disease. If you take a virally infected cell, flu infects a normal cell, and 99.9% of that cell infected with flu looks normal, and yet the immune system can kill it. So why can't the immune system kill a cancer cell, which I would argue is not 99.999% normal? It's because cancer has subverted the immune system. When a cancer is growing, it creates its own ecosystem. That ecosystem creates tolerance. That tolerance has to be reprogrammed. And this is a big challenge, meaning to induce an immune response in a cancer patient is harder than a normal patient. And for us to do this and do this successfully, we need new technologies. So one of the technologies we've developed is something that we call RNA nanoparticles. And these are like onions. And so the more RNA you have in a particle, the more information you can provide. And again, information is power. So the more information from a patient's tumor we can load, the more packaging that particle is going to have to alert the immune system. And so we've just taken advantage of nature's designs. An onion-like design allows us to layer the RNA into each one of these nanoparticles. And the reason this is important is because RNA is negatively charged. So negatively charged molecules bounce off of each other. So you can't package that much into the center of a particle. But if you layer them like this, you can actually package much more RNA. And sure enough, when we've tested these in mice, again, these are mouse studies, and we can talk about the issues with mouse studies. But in mouse studies, these seem to be effective in different types of pediatric cancer. This is osteosarcoma. Osteosarcoma is the most common bone cancer in children, and what kills children, unfortunately, is when this goes to the lungs. And so in a mouse model of this disease, we show that we can cure metastatic osteosarcoma in mice. This is a mouse model of DIPG. This is a mouse tumor that expresses the human H3K27M mutation. And so the value of these particles is you can make them to express any information. You could take the entire tumor RNA, or you can make an RNA for something very specific in a patient's tumor, like H3K27M. That's a mutation. That's not the normal H3K27. And so since that is unique and different, can we alert the immune system to how different K27M is and actually engage the immune response to kill anything that expresses H3K27M, which will be the tumor? So in a mouse model, again, a mouse model, this appeared highly effective. Now, the point of these slides is not to say that this is going to cure or not cure cancer. It may help, it may not help. But what this suggests, what this, I think, proves is the impact you have collectively made. For us to have gotten to this point, we needed to identify H3K27M as a target. That required biopsies of these tumors, discovery of the mutation, the work that has been funded by many of you here. A mouse model needed to be created. And we have partnered with Dr. Oren Becker to obtain this mouse model to now develop therapies. A pipeline has been started because of funding preclinical work. So it's not just the clinical trials, but the preclinical work that you are all funding that is leading to new technologies, new models, new therapies that we can test. And the more therapies we have, the more cracks we can potentially achieve. So this is your success. And whether it works or not, we are learning something and we are developing tools to allow us to learn more, grow more, and test more tools. Ultimately, though, these have to move forward. For them to move forward, we have to get FDA IND approval. Getting FDA IND approval is not trivial. You have got to satisfy many, many, many requirements. And I'll be honest, pharmaceutical companies are the ones that have the bandwidth to satisfy those requirements. We in academia are very challenged in terms of the funding we need to actually move something through the developmental pipeline. We are very fortunate, I am very fortunate to be at the University of Florida, where we've partnered with our College of Veterinary Medicine to run pet dog trials. This satisfies one of the FDA's rules about having large animal work that proves safety of a brand new technology. And these pets, these dogs, develop pediatric forms of cancer. There was a cancer cell paper recently that showed that dog brain tumors are very much like the pediatric brain tumors. And so this is not a mouse model. This is real cancer in a real patient. And now we can make therapies without the regulatory hurdles of the FDA and test those in these animals, of course, with their owner's consent. And we have treated 10 dogs with brain tumors. The brain tumors in dogs are very severe. These animals don't live longer than 1 to 2 months. And because they're animals, they largely are euthanized when they start developing symptoms. So with their owner's consent, we treated 10. All of these dogs live longer than the historical control of 1 to 2 months. Some of these dogs, in fact, many of these dogs, developed tumors that looked more swollen. And you could see one of these patients over here, where the tumor before the vaccine is kind of this halo ring like glioblastoma, But then after treatment, the tumor actually looked more swollen. It actually looked like it was shrinking, but more swollen. And we think this is evidence of an immune response. Again, this is really important because swelling in the tumor could also cause symptoms that we may have to manage, symptoms of increased intracranial pressure. I have a great hope for immunotherapy that we will not have to deal with the same late effects we're seeing with chemotherapy, radiation, other therapies. But I have to be honest, some of the early effects of immunotherapy in some cases are more severe than what I've experienced with chemotherapy. And for immunotherapy to really have a place, we have got to have standards of getting patients through these early effects, early toxicities that we can see, because the immune system can be quite strong and quite profound. And as we do this, we need more technologies, more cracks in the armor, more things to test. I would argue that it should not just be pharmaceutical companies that are serving as the gatekeepers. We heard from day one, they're a phenomenal company. They're all in this mission. We need more examples of that. But I do think academia has a role to play here. We at the University of Florida can manufacture products for patients like a pharmaceutical company. It is very, very, very expensive. And we need other examples of that. But who's funding that? It's millions and millions of dollars to function as a pharmaceutical-like company. And this work has entirely been funded on grants from people in the audience, which is really remarkable. And as we take these things to human trial, we need partnerships. This work is currently in human trials right now for adults with brain cancer. And as soon as we have safety data that will assuage the FDA that we can move into children, we are working with our partners through the PNOC consortium to move this into patients with brain tumors all over the country. These partnerships are critical to learn and iterate. And that iterative process should not take 10, 20, 30 years. If we have data that something is safe, a signal that it could be effective, like ONC201, then we should be quicker in iterating, combining these things, and getting to that cure, that elusive cure that we will achieve, that you, in many ways, have set in motion to its fulfillment. And I thank you. That is really remarkable privilege for me to be here with all of you and to be a small footnote on this incredible story that all of you are writing is really one of life's great honors. Thank you.
Our lives begin to end the day that we become silent about things that matter. Martin Luther King, Jr. My name is Grace Weather, and in my life, I have many voices. I am a daughter. I am a 22-year-old as of tomorrow. Thank you. I'm a Yale dropout. Sorry about that one, Mom. I am a lover of movies and music and books. At work, I'm an author, an actress, and a director. But at home, I'm a fighter. At 13 years old, I began growing extremely sick and tired. My mom took me to countless doctors who said I was depressed, I was a teenager, and I was making it up for attention. That wasn't until one day when a blood test revealed that my red and white blood cell count was very far off, and I was sent to the hematology and oncology department at the Minneapolis Children's Hospital. There, a new doctor recommended that I do an MRI of my spine and my skull, just to rule anything out. The test was scheduled for January 9th of 2015. I did the test like I'd done dozens of others, and I put on my gym uniform, getting ready to go back to school. But as my mom drove through the snow, the phone rang. She answered it, and she didn't say a word. She just hung up, turned the car around, and drove right back to the hospital. Once inside, she was taken one way, and I was taken another. I remember a nurse coming up to me with a pair of scissors and cutting off my paper hospital wristband. She replaced it with a hard, sturdy plastic one. That was the moment I knew that something was wrong. That day, I gained a new voice in my life, a new aspect of myself to explore and learn how to manage. A mass had been discovered in the pons of my brain, inoperable and untreatable with chemotherapy and radiation. I was sent home with no next medical steps, and I didn't know what to do. I became homeschooled very quickly after due to symptoms and side effects, and I quickly became isolated from my friends and from my peers. until something really special happened. I was in a homeschooling group in a science lab with a total of 4 students in it when my eye began to twitch. I usually ran to the bathroom when this happened, but this day I decided to share. I told the class that I was fine, but I had a brain tumor and this happened to me sometimes. A girl named Gigi leaned across the table and said that she had a brain tumor too. I remember sitting on the curb after class comparing stories for hours while her mom sat right next to us doing the exact same thing. This was a very pivotal moment for me in my journey because it was the first time that I felt understood and heard. It was the beginning of my togetherness. After that experience with Gigi, I began sharing my story publicly. I gave a TED Talk and I wrote a book that included my story and the story of 14 other brain tumor survivors. Through those public speaking efforts, I was invited to Washington, D.C. to advocate for pediatric cancer legislation. The first trip I made here was for a bill that at the time was called H-Res 114. On that trip, I met a young man named Jace Ward. Meeting Jace was really special because it was the first time I had ever met somebody with a brain tumor in the same area of the brain as my own. And as we know, symptoms and side effects can differ depending on the location. We sat in the back of congressional briefing rooms laughing about side effects and symptoms and struggles for hours. 8 years later, I am still fighting. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I am tired of fighting. I'm tired of fighting for my health. I'm tired of fighting for my friends and for my peers. I'm tired of fighting for days without seizures and headaches. I am tired of fighting for my life. But one thing I've learned in this journey is that sometimes the only thing harder than fighting every single day is not. And so I stand here today as a liaison, as a voice for all my friends whose journey on this earth was cut off too soon. For Jace, for Amber, for Ariel, for Kate, for Brooke, and for all of the friends that I will never have the opportunity to meet. I stand here today as a label, as an example, as a percentage, asking you to join me. By simply sharing our stories with members of Congress and White House staff, by spreading awareness in our own communities and on social media, and by marching up Capitol Hill fighting for legislation that we are passionate about, we are opening the door to a future with awareness that will lead to research that will ultimately, hopefully, lead to a cure. Because if every single one of us shared the reality that we have to face every single day with just one more person who isn't educated on it, we could double the awareness of the childhood cancer fight. Because I think as families in this fight, we're often labeled with this word, rare. But looking around this room, I'd argue that we are not rare, we're simply unseen to the untrained eye. And my hope is that together, we can use our voices, tell our stories, and train more eyes. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm super excited to introduce to everybody our Tough2gether online platform. We're teaming up with Hands In to basically make a platform that is a controlled platform that we can use in many other ways. So I'm going to hand it off to Brian to let him kind of explain the platform to you guys.
Thank you, Brooke. Really appreciate it. First off, happy Saturday, and thank you for having us. I really appreciate it. My name's Brian Isaac. I'm one of 3 co-founders of Hands In. One of our other co-founders, Mike Galvin, is in the back running the screen for us today, so thank you, Mike. Our other co-founder is in Australia, so he couldn't make it. I think it's important to let you know a little bit about our journey. So Mike and I worked in telecommunications, building out cloud infrastructure for companies like Google, Facebook, Apple, Oracle, et cetera, all the big cloud companies. And we then had a chance meeting at Children's Hospital Orange County where we got introduced to pediatric healthcare and really the inequity that happens in pediatric healthcare compared to adult healthcare. What we found that was really interesting was the willingness to work together, that it wasn't about how long can I hang on to a patient, it's how soon could I get a patient to the right place for the right for the right solutions for them. And it was all about sharing and collaborating. But what they had was a problem was, how do you actually collaborate? How do you work together? And so as we started digging in a little bit more on pediatric healthcare and talking to more children's hospitals, we started getting into really pediatric oncology and even more inequity that was happening there. And we then ended up at Children's Hospital of Atlanta and Georgia Tech for a meeting. And they said, if you really think everything you've heard up to this point is hard, let us tell you about DIPG. And so that's the first time we were introduced, and we had no idea. And so we took all this information and we said, there's something we can do here. We can take our backgrounds, we can take our knowledge, we can take our partners, and we can build a collaboration platform, because we felt that was one area where we need trust, right? If we want to innovate and we want to accelerate, we need trusted spaces. We need places to be able to bring our communities together. So community was everything for us. And so that's really the premise behind Hands In. And so we've been going on this journey and building out our platform to support that, so that you have a place to communicate amongst each other. And we were then very fortunate to have DIPG come full circle for us, and we met Lisa Ward and her vision and what you could do with communities and how you could support each other while you're in different parts of the fight, and have the right resources there, not only just in your local community, but also on a national basis and also internationally. So we're really excited to be here, and thank you so much for embracing us and inviting us into your conference. And we just look forward to having our journey be your journey. And before I hand over to Brooke, I just want to say one last thing, which is, this is your journey. We want the feedback. This is a platform for you. We're only as good as the information that we get back from all of you, so we can build it. It's not static built to where it's stuck the way it is and we're going to say no to everything. It's really built to a point where we can now make those little minor tweaks to the platform. So thank you very much. And I'll let Brooke tell a little bit more about the platform.
Okay, guys, so this platform is kind of interesting in my untrained eye. I'm not very technology sound, so I like it a lot. It's invite in only. You can't just make your own login, okay? So I might have some technical difficulties. It might pop up here in a second, but it's invite in. You can come onto the website under Tough2gether right here. There we go. And you'll see right now we already have communities started. So we have one for CureFest, DIPG, DMG, Leah's Kids. You can put your foundation on here. You'll also see that we are working with K-State. Tough2gether is. We work with their marketing department. We can have them on there to collaborate. Tough2gether, our board members, we actually meet on Hands In. There's a video call option, just like Zoom. So we schedule our calls in there. We drop all of our documents all in one place, which is really nice in a chat, because you can sit there and you can find all of the documents. You don't have to go and scroll through all of your emails or all of any group chats that you guys are in. It can really be all in one place. If you want to get connected to somebody that is connected to Tough2gether, so that you're running your foundation and you want to get connected with another foundation, right where they showed where the members were at, you can go in there, find members, and find them directly there too, so you don't have to use social media on that realm. Here is all of the communities that we have started now. So for everybody in this room, you guys already know, you're already engaged in DIPG. You already have your own story, which is great. You can come in here and find different groups that you want to be a part of. What's really exciting is the future. So I don't know if any of you guys can relate to this, but when that DIPG diagnosis comes about, no one around your family can relate. No one knows what to do. You don't know where to go. A lot of time you go to Facebook groups. Hopefully they find Tough2gether, those newly diagnosed. We can put them into Tough2gether, and we can help them add into groups that will help them. So newly diagnosed knowledge, different trials that are going on, support groups. We're going to do a sibling support group. So siblings can come in, kind of have a spot where we can meet and talk and chat. And it's all very, very safe, if that makes sense, if you want to talk about.
Yeah, sure, I'd love to, thank you. I think we're not saying get away from social media. I think social media is a fantastic place for us to get the word out and to scream at the top of our lungs and bring attention to us. But then we can take that a step further, and people can now join and come into the Tough2gether organization here and come into your communities. Now where your conversations are happening is happening privately and securely. The entire platform is encrypted end to end, and we're not monetizing, we're not looking at that data, we're not analyzing that data. Those are your conversations. So now you can take those private conversations you're having out there in the public spaces, and now you can have them in a nice private space. So I think that's really the big thing. We're not saying get away from Facebook. It's very important, and Twitter and Instagram, et cetera. But then you can come in here and have conversations. I think one of the ways to think about that is if you're familiar with Slack and Zoom and Dropbox and WhatsApp, those are the functions that we're providing for you in here. It's not those companies, but it's those functions. So you can instant message, you can share files, you can get on video calls, you can run webinars out of here. You can just have calls with your family members if you want. So we can help bring in family who lives wherever. If this works on an international basis. So we ourselves do calls with people in Italy and India and Singapore and Australia. So.
And the last thing I'm going to say is I know in the back of I know it has to be my dad for sure in the back of his head. Ugh, another thing I have to learn. Another platform I have to learn. I would urge you guys to take some time, get in here. We have some tutorial videos. You guys can actually get in touch directly with me or with Mike or Brian or any of us to ask your questions. Just see if this is somewhere that can house something for you guys, if that's a support group, if that's your foundation, whatever. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about the map feature they're building out on that because pretty soon as people come in as members, we're going to be able to see where all our DIPG families are. Now, not like to my driveway with my cars in it, but in the general radius that you live. So for advocacy, if we need people in Tennessee or Vermont or wherever, it suddenly becomes really easy to find those families and ask if we can use their voices. It also helps if you're looking for services, right, to know who's around you that you can reach out to. I met April and Justin. I can remember the day Justin called, and he had a few questions about DIPG because their beautiful daughter, Elowen, had just been diagnosed. And I can remember when he said, "Is it okay if my wife calls you because this has been really hard on her and she's not handling the news very well?" And I think we had probably a 2-hour conversation, much like many, many of you and I have. And that's why the navigators are so much better, because remember, I took science in 1988. But April and I did bond over that call. And the one thing we both, I think, have is this just desire to fight whatever it is coming after our kiddos. And so when I said, April, is there any chance you would want to share from your view? She said, "Hell yeah, I will." So this is April Malik, her husband Justin Pollard, and they have 3 beautiful little girls, including Elowen, who's at Seattle with CAR T-cell.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm the mother of Elowen Pollard. She's 4, and we're from Michigan. And I'm going to apologize. My allergies are horrible, so my Michigan accent is super aggressive this morning. A lot of hard A's are going to come at you. Elowen was 3 when she was diagnosed, and over 25% of her life, she's been waging war against DIPG. I do not call it a journey, because that's not been our experience. It's a full-on war. Before Elowen was diagnosed, though, my husband and I knew something was wrong around 15 months old. They were very small symptoms that didn't go away. And so I, like many of you, dragged my kid everywhere in the state of Michigan to every ologist, every specialist I could find with a binder of Elowin. It became the encyclopedia of Elowin. And over and over and over again, we were told, that's not a big deal. That's weird, but it's not a big deal. So to put it in perspective, to say that Elowin's tough is the biggest understatement ever, because this girl is tough as nails. She's not just a vibe, she's a full experience. She's not here today because she's home with the grandparents. If she was here, you would have heard her already. And part of the things that I want to say about Elowin are not just about her cancer, it's about who she is as a person, because it's so important for us to tell people about our kids, and I want you to take a piece of Elowin home with you. Elowin was transferred from her original diagnosing facility in July of 2022 to University of Michigan. One of the best decisions we've ever made. Dr. Koshman was talking, I don't know if he's still in this room. I will gush about that man, he's amazing. One of the best decisions we made was to move her from a diagnosing facility to a treating facility. And a lot of parents here know what the difference in that is. So we get to U of M, and the radiology radiation department is an adult department. So it's all older individuals with varying degrees of physical abilities, and that becomes important in the story. So Elowin's treatment room for kids is in the back, and you have to snake through the hallway. And we had a very wonderful child life specialist who saw this picture of my daughter, this beautiful little blonde girl with these big blue eyes, and she thinks, oh, she's sweet. No. So we snake down to the back of this child's room at the end of this radiology department, adult department, and there's a Power Wheels. And right away I tell the child life specialist, hey, this is not a great idea. And she's like, no, because again, she sees this picture of this kid. So Elowin gets into the Power Wheels, and it is pedal to the plastic. She's ripping through the hallway of the adult cancer radiation department, and this child life specialist rips after her. And all I hear is, no, oh no, I'm sorry, oh my God. And so I'm walking behind cool, this is gonna be an experience. And I find the child life specialist, she's grabbed the back end of this Power Wheel, and she's like, oh my gosh, Elowin doesn't know how to drive this, she's been hitting people. And I said, no, she knows how to drive a Power Wheel. She's doing that on purpose. That's why I told you not to put that there. Because every parent in this room knows what Power Wheels are to children, and it is Grand Theft Auto. It is how many people can I smoke in the backyard, and Elowin will run you over. And so while she's ripping through the hallway, Elowin has this really high-pitched Minnie Mouse voice, and it's like Xena Warrior Princess, just through the radiation department. So Elowin's not allowed on Power Wheels anymore. But part of the reason of that is that Elowin constantly gets underestimated, and I think a lot of our kids do because they're young. Elowin also has a pretty significant speech delay, so it can be hard to understand her. And so a lot of times they'll see this sweet little girl, and I'll have to be like, hey, she's a Pisces, she's sneaky, and don't ever turn your back on her. One of the other things, as we get out of radiation, she does great. We have her on CBD. We'd weaned her off deck, so she was a little less scary, is that month post-radiation MRI is huge, right? Every parent in this room knows that MRI after radiation is one of the more terrifying MRIs, because that decides if your kid's going to get in a trial that you had to stalk a doctor to get into, you've had to do massive amount of research to get into, that you've been praying and, oh my gosh, is this gonna be it? So this MRI has a lot of weight to it. And it was an early Friday morning in Ann Arbor that this MRI was set for. And I had just gotten a promotion at work, and it happened to be in a hotel that I had to give a presentation to in Ann Arbor. So we end up spending the night before. There's this big dinner. We show up to this hotel. My husband and I are like, oh, this ain't good. We don't get invited to places like this. It was way too bougie for us, and I have my 4-year-old here. So we go up to the room. My husband leaves to go get something, and she's sitting on the bed with snacks and an iPad. So I go to the bathroom for all of 30 seconds. I come out. She's moved from that location. She's sitting on the bed with this massive Cheshire cat grin on her face. Every parent in that room or in this room knows that that means something horrible has happened while you've been in the bathroom. I'm checking the room. It's like a murder scene now. Like, what's happened? What'd she do? And I don't see anything. And I think, okay, cool. So I put my suit on, and 3 minutes later, I was pounding at the door, like yelling, aggressive pounding, hotel security, EMS, open the door, we have a key. Okay, that's not good. I opened the door. She had called 911 when I was in the bathroom. And again, she's 3. And the other fun fact about this is that my work, who I don't know a lot of these, upper level CEOs and stuff, they were all block booked with us. So everybody heard everything that had happened, and I had to go down to these people that had just promoted me and be like, so hey, my daughter called 911. And that was my bad. I'm sorry, But part of the reason I tell these stories is because I want people to know Elowen. And I know we live in different states and we don't always get to see each other's kids, and we see them on Facebook, but there's so much more to that story because Elowen is such a tough cookie. And part of her toughness has gotten her through the Seattle CAR-T trial. That, I'm very happy and we're privileged to be in that trial. It's done great things for Elowen, but it is tough. I'll tell you all about it if you want to talk to me. Because there are things that I think parents, when you get into trials, you're just not prepared for, ever. And a lot of times it's actually talking to another parent. It's not talking to the trial itself. It's talking to another parent about, like, what are the logistics? How much is this going to cost? Where should we stay? Where should we go? For Seattle specifically, we had to live there for 8 weeks for the first part of that trial, which actually ended up being about 10 weeks. I had to move my entire family across the country. We had no idea where to live, where to go, and you're just dropped in the middle of the city. It's extremely expensive there too, so we had to take that burden on as well. But a lot of us being able to navigate and provide care from our kids comes from talking to other parents. And so I answer the phone when I know there's a parent asking about Seattle because Lisa Ward answered her phone. Tammy Carr answered her phone on a weird number that called at like 10 o'clock at night. She answered and helped us navigate too. So part of the thing with DIPG that I've realized over these years, or over the 14 months that we've been in this, is that there's a lot of triggers. Things become triggers to you and your child that make really no sense. Some of them do. Like hospitals, obviously, are triggers for all of us. My daughter is now triggered by backpacks because she knows that backpack means she's going to Seattle. She knows what that means. She knows what she's in store for. White tubes of cream have become a trigger for Elowen, because she knows it's Emla cream, or she thinks it's Emla cream. So I've had to change the toothpaste that I've bought in my house because these cream packets, anything white and in a tube, represents she's gonna have her port accessed. She will immediately vomit if she thinks her port is being accessed. There's not much I can do to help that. We've tried everything we can. Pudding has become a trigger. These things are now triggers in your life. And so what we have to do as a parent is understand that these triggers are happening, but where can we find the glimmers? And so that's why her mowing people over with a power wheel, her doing crazy things at the hospital, her calling 911, her being her are part of the glimmers that we hold on to and that I encourage other parents to. And I know it's such a cliche to say, live life to its fullest. Our brains aren't really made for that, because then it really would be Grand Theft Auto every day for everybody. No one would diet. No one would go to work. We wouldn't pay taxes. So our brains aren't wired to live like that. So it's frustrating to hear that, but I have really, really tried to stay positive, and my husband will second that too. Our 6-year-old is here. This is our second time coming here representing for Elowen, and we're very aware of the fact we have 3 little girls looking at us. And so we try to stay positive because DIPG will take everything from you. And so you have to hold on to those glimmers. You have to hold on to those moments, and you have to hold on to each other. When Lisa talks about the DIPG one length, I mean, that's a tremendous step forward for all of us, because when you are telling people that your child's been diagnosed with cancer and they've been diagnosed with DIPG, it's terminal, and they'll say, well, what's the treatment plan? There isn't one. Okay, well, what about medical diagnosis and treatment, and what about trials and all these other things? What about medications that can help? Oh yeah, I'm getting that from Facebook. Like, it terrifies people because they think, what cancer, what disease does anybody have in this world where their sole source of information is Facebook? It's wild. And so things like this of bringing all the information together so that parents aren't themselves sharing each other's kids' biopsy information and their mutations and these trials, this is gonna help propel us in the right direction, because information is power for us. We don't have months to figure out what trial is going to work for our kid. You have days sometimes to make decision, days. And how do you do that? So this has been a really, really great, wonderful thing for us. And I also want to gush about our nurse navigator, Lauren, who's in here. I did this last week at Chad Tough. She is amazing. This nurse navigator program has been such a wonderful asset to my family. I cannot tell you how often I've leaned on Lauren. I've called her, something weird is happening, what do I do, what do you think? Lauren has gotten me in touch with other people that have helped me as well. And part of this is having somebody who understands what you're going through, because it's so hard to find that person. And so Lauren has really become like a family member to our family, and I love her, and I thank her for everything. Lisa Ward has answered every single one of my phone calls, my late night texts. So how do we get Lisa, who is like the Cliff Notes version of DIPG, how do we get that into, and it's really, I'm really hopeful that this DIP one note is really gonna revolutionize how we help save our children. So hopefully if you heard anything today, you've heard that these are wonderful programs, this is all moving in the right direction. And I also want to personally thank a lot of the parents and the children that have come before, Elwin and other kids that have been diagnosed more recently. I know a lot of you had to make horrible decisions and you were in the dark, and a lot of the decisions you made, including donating the tissue samples for your children, had to be very difficult. And I thank you personally for doing that, because every single thing you did has led us to here now. I wish we had more, but this is so amazing. I was here last year and this stuff wasn't happening, so you're seeing in real time the tremendous push and drive to help save our children and make the tissue samples and all of the sacrifices of the families and the children before us become real cures right now. So thank you very much. Thank you, Lisa.
Please. Oh, I have it right.
Okay. I think I know how to use this. We'll figure it out. Okay, here we are. Hi.
Hi, I'm Summer, Grayson's mom.
And I am Lori, I'm Noah's mom, and we are here together today to talk to you about our family support network called
Live.
Brave.
Together.
Woo! Yes, we are so excited. Thank you guys, good job. I remember vividly the day that I received a text from a family that Noah Brave had been supporting during their daughter's journey with DIPG. They needed financial assistance for her final expenses, so I simply asked the father, send me the bill. When I saw the bottom line, over $12,500, my heart sank. I wanted to be able to take care of all of it for them so they didn't have to worry about it, and they could focus on their family and their newfound grief, but we couldn't. We weren't a big enough organization, so we took care of what we could, and I offered to reach out to other organizations to help cover the cost so that we could fill this bill together. I started thinking, what if we had a network of other organizations that I could quickly call on to help? We could all easily work together and cover things together. So it was last year around this time, right after CureFest, that Lisa, Summer, and myself remained on a call after a DARFA meeting, and we discussed this exact thing. How do we streamline the process to help more families quickly and efficiently? So, wait a second. There we go. So I want you to think of DARFA, okay, but for family care. I know we all have heard about DARFA today. So through our work with DARFA, we have donated dollars easily and quickly to help fund research for a cure. We are working together to fund what we cannot do individually. So through Live Brave Together Network, donated dollars will help support families in the fight easily and quickly, working to fund together what we cannot do individually. So again, just like DARFA is for research, Live Brave Together Network will be for family support. Over the last year and a half, Live Crazeway, Noah Brave, and Tough2gether have been collaborating with many of you in this room, foundations and individuals, to help meet the needs of our families in the fight.
We'd receive a text with an immediate need that a family had, like paying for rent, travel for a clinical trial, a flight across the country, groceries, paying for a funeral, or purchasing medical equipment. And as a group, we would all chip in what we could, whether it was $250 or $2,500, until the need was met. We realized as individual foundations, we could not sustain the growing needs of our community, but when we worked together, we could share our resources, quickly helping more families and meeting bigger needs. As we continue to help families, we saw the need to streamline the process, providing a better way to utilize our resources so that it's more functional for our foundations and more efficient for our families. Our goal is to meet the needs of our families and make sure none of them slip through the cracks. We're not reinventing the wheel here. This is something that most of you have already been a part of, like supporting London's family at her celebration of life. Sorry. Lucas's last Christmas. Zoe Jane's Make-A-Wish trip to Washington, Christmas in June and a new car for Callie, gift cards for Ryder's family while he was receiving treatment at the hospital, Tyler's family trip to Alaska, and Esther's trip to the ballet. I think I speak for most of us in this room that have gone through the fight or have children currently fighting. We know what worked, what didn't, and what we wish we had available. We know what it feels like to try to fill out multiple intake forms for all the different organizations and not even knowing what is out there for support or what you're even applying for. We remember feeling completely overwhelmed and asking ourselves, where do we even start? Who do we contact? Where do we get support? Do we qualify for disability, and how do we even fill out forms for that? I didn't know anything about that. Should I go set up a GoFundMe or a meal train? How do we do that? We spent our days taking care of our children, trying to squeeze in a lifetime of memories, while the nights were spent trying to save them, researching available trials and possible treatments. We have experience, and it's absolutely heartbreaking, and it totally sucks, but turning our pain into purpose is what keeps us going. If we can help a family focus on what's important and less about how they're going to get support, then we have done our job. This is why Live Brave Together Network exists. We will help our families get the support they need easily and quickly, connecting them to all the organizations who are ready to jump in and help.
So how do we do this? Let me show you. So, our hope is that our Live Brave Together website will be a one-stop shop for our families that are facing DIPG, DMG. It will include links and resources to Hands In, which you've heard about, which is our online community platform, DIPG One Link, which you've also heard about, Born with Sandeep, My DIPG Nurse Navigator, how to apply for those things like disability and government assistance in your area, as well as instructional videos on how to set up a GoFundMe, a Venmo account, those things that we found super helpful in our journey with our children. So you might be asking at this exact moment, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. How do I become a part of this awesome network? Let me tell you. We have two options right now, and we are really excited about this because we want everybody in this room to feel like they can be a part of helping families. I feel like I do also speak for so many of us that when you're in the fight, people are like, what can I do? What can I do? How can I help? How can I help? And now some of us that are on the other side of that fight, we still feel that way. Like, how do we help Ellen? How do we help Finn? How do we help Remy? Like all these kids that are currently fighting still. How do we help Vivian? And we want everyone in this room to be able to be a part. So we have a contributor option, which is a $250 annual fee. And that gives you access to you're putting your funds into an emergency fund that we are going to use to support families. You will be listed as a contributor on our Live Brave Together website. This is great for individuals and families. Many of you also have started foundations, and so if you want to kind of go a step further and you want to give $2,500 per year, you can become a member. And members are really what drives this force behind being able to go into the emergency fund. So members will have their logo and links to their individual foundation websites, or if you don't have a foundation website, it will link you to your child's story. So for example, Lucy Love is one of our members, and if you go on our website and you look under member and you click Lucy's logo, it will take you to her Chad Tough family partner page. So again, we're just trying to share the stories of our kids, and so that's how that works. Also, members of Live Brave Together will have full access to our community on Hands In. So they'll be able to immediately be notified when a family posts a request. That member will have the opportunity to go in and say, hey, I want to take that, either partially or in full. Also be boots on the ground for families that are geographically in a location. We have a lot of Florida families that are currently battling, or in Rachel Payne back there, and a few others, Chelsea Johnson, I don't know where she is. But we have this like Florida text, and it's like, hey, who can do these things? And we've had several examples of families that have gone to hospitals, and we've literally called and been like, hey, I need you to go over there like right now and go take care of getting this family checked in. So we're just this community that's gonna, be boots on the ground. Also, a geographical, a family support area coordinator. Tyler's gonna take Idaho for us, so shout out to Tyler and Melissa.
That's right on. So where will your yearly dues go? Whether you're a contributor at $250 or a member at $2,500, it will go into an emergency fund. We will be 100% transparent with how we are spending these funds, posting them in our hands-on community, and taking your requests for how these funds are used throughout the year to meet families' needs. Live Graysway, Noah Brave, and Tough2gether are going to cover all the administrative costs, so your membership dollars will go directly to help with the emergency needs of our DIPG, DMG families.
It was just this week I received a message from one of our families whose daughter passed away a week ago from DIPG. She was requesting financial assistance from Noah Brave to help to cover the cost of her funeral. Before our Live Brave Together network existed, I would have felt the pressure, once again, of Noah Brave taking the full cost of that. Excuse me. But, However, this time, I confidently told her, we got it. Put it on the credit card, we'll figure it out. Because I now have a network of foundations and families working together, surrounding us to take care of those needs quickly and efficiently. And to our families, that means everything. So, again, everyone in this room is welcome to join us. We'd love to have you a part of our Live Brave Together Family Support Network.
Thank you to our members and contributors that have already joined us, which we'll show you here. So we're super thankful. Yes. And if you are a member or a contributor in this room, would you mind standing up?
Yeah. If you're a member or a contributor, can you please stand up and look around the room and see who's partnering with us? No, you. Just this week, we had Cheer Like Maddie join us as a member, and Christy and Tom back there, who are amazing, they're joining us, as well as the Sands and Andrea and Mark Mize, Rally for Reagan. So
we couldn't do this without you, and together we will be able to help more families quicker and easier. So thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Yeah, and if you want to come talk to us about being a member or contributor. Bye.
Thank you. Wait, I'll help you.
I am honored to introduce one of our last speakers of the morning. Our next speaker is Mairead Finn. She is the mother of the wonderful Vivian, and she's also a family partner at Chad Tough Defeat DIPG Foundation. She's going to be sharing with us today a little bit about her advocacy work and where we need your help right now. Please join me in welcoming Mairead Finn.
I was just saying to Grace, she said my name perfectly. My name is Mairead Finn, and I am the mother of Vivian Finn, who sadly passed away March 10, 2020. But in true Vivian style, she would only want me to talk about her vivacious life. So if I could have the next slide. Oh, there is a clicker? Okay. Oh, we got it. All right. This is my beautiful family. Vivian's in the middle. She was one of 3 daughters, and then Mr. Connor came along just to spice it up. She was a lifer at Sacred Heart of Greenwich, where she received all of her sacraments, and I think her faith and her courage to go to the next life. One thing that she always loved to do was she loved to play soccer. And she was the defense player. And I honestly think she loved doing that because she would be at the back of the field talking to the goalkeeper about strategies and not to be nervous and things like that. So she always had that element of, be strong, you can do this. And then another thing she loved to do, I had always been a troop leader for all of my girls. So I thought I would be able to kind of go scot-free and not be that troop leader for Vivian. But oh no, that was not going to happen. She decided that I would be the troop leader and I would bring her on many adventures. And she was going to be my assist. And how she did that was she always kind of figured out who would sleep in each other's rooms and who would work together. And she was always very much into kind of saying, this is not going to work, they're going to talk all night, she'll want to go to sleep, whatever. She loved plays, musicals. She was a fashionista. She had bands up her arm all the time. And today, I'm wearing a gold sparkly headband. This is not my style at all, but I'm doing it for her. I think Reagan can have it later on, okay, Reagan? But nothing could have prepared us for what was to happen November 16, 2018. We found out that she had a mass in the pons of her brain and then started the journey. I'm not actually going to talk too much about it because you know what? Vivster, as she's called at home, would not want me to talk about it. She would want me to talk about her life, the quality of life she had, and the quality of life that she had as a young child who got to 11. I'm going to do the next slide. So now, I've told my story. It's not an easy one to tell, but I feel like one thing that I get from telling her story, and I hope that you'll get too, this is the first thing I can control. I can control her story, her legacy. Her story is enough. It's the way we're going to actually have change come about. And I think for me, I can decide how it's told. And I really think it's important for us as parents to lead the way. Like I look at all the other work that advocates have done going forward. I just actually found out recently that it wasn't just 4% of federal funding now is going to pediatric care, it's 8%, and that's because of advocates that have gone before me. So I'm gonna lean on those ladies and gentlemen that have worked hard and learn how to advocate properly. I'm a newbie to the arena. There's definitely legislation I don't know, but I'm hoping that with the people in this room, that we can agree together to maybe work together, learn together, almost have an advocacy book club, if you'd like to call it, where we can just talk and see what pieces of legislation could actually help our kids going forward. So, I've actually created this QR code, and if you were to click on it, what I hope to be able to glean from it is that we could actually get email addresses, kids' stories, what people would like to actually advocate for your child, whether that's grandparents in different states, friends in different states. The idea is that the more people that are talking to their representatives will actually have our voices heard. Another thing that I learned about, and I'm going to tell you that one of my soul sisters is Ellen Miller. A little fact and story about Ellen. I don't know if she's here today. Her daughter, Gabriella, was actually treated in Washington by the exact same oncologist that Vivian had. And Dr. Asher Marks decided that the two of us should get together. And I met at one of these events probably 3 years ago. And it's been just amazing to meet somebody who's been in the fight longer, and boy, does she know how to talk in Congress. So I'm going to hold Miss Allen's coattails, and hopefully she's going to teach me something. And one thing she did teach me already is that if you go on to congress.gov and you actually look at certain pieces of legislation, you can actually see how much progress is being made. What representatives have gone with your bill or legislative plan? And I think you really start to see is my vote worth giving to this person if they're not actually going to consider the residents in their state. So I would advise anybody, if there's any pieces of legislation that you're concerned about, just to see in your state, has your representatives actually agreed to go forward with it or signed on to it? Now, you know what? this slide is old because I came to this event, Brainstorm. I know that there's lots of new legislation coming down the line. So I know we are actually in Washington, D.C., and I used to call, when I brought my kids here, that you would get to see all the different founding fathers. I now think there are founding mothers of advocacy, and I'm going to name their names. Sarah Milberg, Ellen Miller, Danielle Leach, Dean Crow. I didn't meet Nancy Goodman, but I hope to meet her someday. I see what they have in store for us and what's on the horizon, and I am blown away. They've already worked so hard, but I want us all to sort of get interested in what they're doing. Dean Crow with the Raleigh Foundation, who has already secured something like $146 million to actually fund 153 new research projects. She goes back every single year, and she has to reword verbiage to retain and to increase that federal funding. So I think we should be stepping up with her. Ellen Miller, of course, of Smashing Walnut. She's pushing forward with the Gabriella Miller Kids First 2.0. Again, trying to appropriate another $126 million in research funds. I learned actually about also Finn Sawyer Act that's going to be brought about, and that's going to try and cover molecular sort of diagnostics whenever somebody comes into a hospital. Unbelievable. Another one that I've heard about, and I've listed it here too, was Nancy Goodman's Give Kids a Chance Act to bring about more combination drugs, novel drugs being tested by the FDA. I think, again, that's the only way we're going to get to a cure. So, and also Al Musala's Promising Pathway Act. It's kind of encompassing of a lot of different diseases, and I'm hoping that we can sort of narrow it down to just brain cancer. So what I want to say to you is, listen, this is not my forte. I don't get up in front of crowds. I don't tell my story. If I can do it, you can do it. Thank you.
Okay, you did it. You proved you can sit longer than church. I'm proud of you. I hope there was some new stuff that you learned. I have a lot of shout outs I got to give, and we're going to do it fast, but it's really important, so look around the room. The first one is for our platinum sponsors for the Brainstorm Summit and Breakfast. Hands In, Slalom, X-Cures, Day One. Please stand up. Please stand up if you're still in the room. I know most of them were here the last 2 days. They have helped us with so many things. Also, a shout out to Sonalisance, who has brought forth a treatment with very few side effects. We're so proud of their work. Please stand up. It is enrolling at a number of sites, and they were brave enough to take on DIPG when so many won't until the adult trials go through. So thank you very much for your work. April Freeman is available to talk to anyone, anytime about that trial. Chimerix is not in the room. They're over in Europe recruiting, but they're very close to drug approval, and they're going to need all our help to get it through. It's going to be one of the very first drug approvals for DIPG in decades, and that is significant. That is significant. Now I want anyone who is a family sponsor for this event or a gold, silver, bronze, or participating sponsor, stand up, because we cannot do this without you. Every single group. Look at this. Almost every table. Almost every table. Thank you so much. That's the way we do it together. If you helped with children events this week, would you stand up? That is not an easy job, and you made it really fun for our kids. And I know there were many more here over the last week, too. I also want to just thank all of our volunteers. So if you helped with the Brainstorm Summit before we got here at the event, would you please stand up? Some of you were roped in at the last minute. And I want to give a special shout out to Sylvia Halleck, who makes our beautiful decorations. She does such a good job to honor our families, and I appreciate it very much. And then one who's not in the room, but you can clap loud, I think she's watching, is Samantha Shacon, and she makes sure all of our AV, along with Dudley Productions in the back, gets off on cue. And wasn't it an improvement over last year? So it's been 2 years since Jace passed, and my best friend said to me, and I do love her, don't you think it's time to get back to your life? Haven't you put enough into this? How can we? How can we? That made me mad, and I love her, but it made me mad when she said that. You know what else would make me really mad? If I were in the fight today, like some of you are, because you heard us say, wow, look at what we did, look at this, look at this, look at this. And there is not a cure. And there is not a new trial today that I can tell all of you to get into. And that makes me mad. And it makes most of the people in this room mad. It's what you deserve to hear. And it would make me mad if I were in this room and I had to spend $8,000 a month to get compounded ONC 201 in Germany, because to get it here means I have to be on a randomized trial where I might get a placebo. That is not right. We know it's not right, and we got to keep speaking up about it, and we are sorry if you're in that position. And please come talk to Lori and Summer or I, and we will do all we can to help you with that. Because you should not have to choose for your child to take a placebo in the name of science. I am proud of everything we featured today, and some we didn't even talk about, like Gabriella Smiles that opened up a new center for cancer patients in Texas, like Bonnie and Scott Woodworth, who are working with a school for kids with cancer in the Tampa area that's beautiful, and a beautiful campground with the One Voice Foundation. I'm so proud of those things. But I also want to stay mad. I don't want to ever sigh when I hear 5 children passed away this week. I did not know 5 children who passed away in my first 50 years of life from cancer, and I will not accept it. And I don't want any one of us to accept it, ever. I am mad, and DIPG, DMG will not wait. It won't wait. It won't wait for it to be convenient, for us to find our footing and our balance again. Our job is to push hard. Our job is for every one of us in the room to hear from 10 people next year that you won't take no for an answer. Don't let me have the corner on the market. You do it too. You do it too. You know, it's heavy. And if you're in the fight right now, I just want to tell you, it is the heaviest place I ever found myself. I cried in the shower every day for 2 years. And I want to share with you something that really helped me. We had friends, a couple, and I've shared this with many of you, I think, Jory and Tamara. Lifelong friends. And they sent us their wrists united with Jace's wristbands on. We're praying for you. You got this. And Jace had 3 months left in his life expectancy at that point. And the next day, Jory died in a car accident. And what that taught us was something that I will take with me forever. I remember when I told Jace, I said, do you remember Jory and Tamara sent us those bands yesterday? And Jory died this morning in a car accident. And he said, damn, I was feeling sorry for myself. I only had 3 more months. I guess I need to work faster because no one's promised tomorrow. And I think that's true. I think sometimes we think we're going to get to it. We're going to find the time. It's going to be fun. I need more balance in my life. But I will tell you, you are the reason that I have gotten out of bed every day for the last 2 years. You are the reason that we kept working when I couldn't even go to the grocery store or go back to my office. And I know I'm not alone because I know a lot of you out there feel the same way. Our purpose in life feels different, right? But for you that are in the fight, just know we fight with you. It's just not something we're saying. We are trying so hard. And if you haven't connected yet with a place that feels right to you to be involved, or you thought, nobody asked me, maybe I don't have the ability or the talent, this is your invitation. It isn't all come, and we have so much work to do. And I don't ever want to feel like you didn't have the chance. You know, Misha, who has brought so many of these beautiful speakers here that have given remarkable presentations, told me last year afterwards that she had been in bed for over 6 to 8 weeks. And Sandeep, who's a data junkie, told me she's only taking an average of 40 steps a day because she had lost Neve, who was the most beautiful little boy. And this year, she is calling companies, and they are providing assays, and they are providing supplies, and we have got speakers, and we've got funders lined up because Misha was like, yeah, this sucks, but let's go. And Stacy Sands wrote some of the most beautiful words you're ever going to read on DIPG One Link on the same day of her son's birthday and his first day back to school, had he only not been in heaven. So we can do it. We will do it. We will do it together. I want the survivors in this room. We have some adults. We met Grace, but if you are a survivor, would you just stand up? I know David's here, Lily is here, Nicole is here. Stand up, stand up, stand up. You remind us that we can fight harder than we ever have, and I thank you for that. You guys, I can't ever thank you enough for spending the money, your time to come. I hope that this was helpful to you. I hope meeting others is rewarding to you. We need you. So as you finish out the hour, take time to reflect on the faces that you probably knew on Facebook, some you knew in person. Visit Amanda. She's written a beautiful book. Stick around for Cure Fest tonight. Join us tomorrow for the Shoe Memorial. And get to know each other because we are a family that gets it. No one in this room would ever say to me, it's been 2 years. Isn't it time to get on with your life? No, we're here together for a long time, and I can't think of a better group to be with. Thank you so much.